Chapter 91. Above the World, Sun, Moon, and Stars. TL. Sungman. Before that, Lin Tian had to discuss the situation with those master-level dwarf blacksmiths. They needed to create a magic tool specifically to deal with the undead and the church. "Dear, where are you going again? Let me help you," Adele said, full of concern. This time, Lin Tian couldn't refuse her help even if he wanted to. The only comforting thing was that the dwarves had been forging with great care during this period. He even heard that they had created a world-class magic tool. Soon, they arrived outside the forge. One by one, the dwarves were hammering away at the fiery red ores. The light from the furnace illuminated their faces, creating a scene rich with artistic ambiance. This was the art of forging. "Your Majesty the Queen, His Highness Dennis, what brings you here?" The kingdom's former chief blacksmith, Bill, spoke up, respectfully taking off his hat and bowing. Despite being over 100 years old, he still looked quite vigorous. His arms were solid and muscular. A true professional at first glance. Lin Tian also returned the salute, removing his hat. "Master Bill, I'm here to ask for your help in creating a specific magic tool." "Oh, no problem. However, your legend has already spread throughout the city," Bill said with a mischievous smile. "Legend?" Lin Tian was a bit confused and looked at Adele. "What legend?" "The epic battle at the tavern where you defeated hundreds of people, don't you know? Although you were seriously injured, it was a historic event on the continent, a legendary occurrence," Adele said with pride and joy, tightly hugging Lin Tian's arm. "It was an honor, and she wouldn't punish the female dwarves for it." Lin Tian finally understood. Indeed, he had almost died there. But relatively speaking, it was truly a legendary event and quite honorable. At this moment, Bill laughed heartily and got down to business. "What kind of magic tool do you need? Explain its purpose. The strongest beings on the continent are the undead and the holy types, like the church and deities. I want to create a magic tool specifically to deal with them," Lin Tian explained seriously. Hearing this, Bill pondered for a moment. They might not be the strongest, but indeed, it's necessary to prepare a tool for them. "Leave it to me. I'll ensure you get a satisfactory magic tool." Hearing his assurance, Lin Tian felt relieved. On the way back, the female dwarves eyed Lin Tian like hungry predators, their gazes lecherous. Being stared at like that all the way made his scalp tingle. It was the first time he used the word lecherous to describe girls, especially little lowly-type girls. Lin Tian stopped and said, "Let's hurry back." Once they returned to the palace and calmed down a bit, Lin Tian spoke. "System, start the life simulation." The life simulation system is starting. Current scenario. Dwarf Kingdom Arc. After much hardship, you finally arrived at the Dwarf Kingdom, where wild little lawless are everywhere, almost making you think it's paradise. However, you almost lost your life accidentally at the tavern. On the other hand, you became a legendary figure in the Dwarf Kingdom. Not wanting to repeat the same mistakes, you sought guidance from Master Jamila in the palace to learn forging. Days passed, and as your forging skills improved, the dwarves forged more and more magic tools. In a month, they completed 700. In the second month, the female dwarves started to strike, demanding that you share the same hardships, going down to the mines and drinking together. Option 1. Agree to share the hardships, score 100. Option 2. Avoid them, prioritize your life, score 10. Option 3. Improvise, score 30. Seeing the astonishing score differences, Lin Tian didn't need to think much to know that choosing option 1 would be certain death. He would be tormented to death by those female dwarves who could absorb dirt while sitting. But if he chose option 2, those guys would definitely strike, including the males, and the progress of magic tool production would fall behind. He could only choose option 3 and see what improvisation would do. To appease the female dwarves, you hired several guards and had Adele accompany you closely, going down to the mines again. However, the guards were knocked out, and Adele was sent away. You were nearly dragged into the dark depths of the mine, an extremely terrifying place. With no choice, you had to reveal your strength and forcibly escape. Fortunately, it did not arouse suspicion. At the tavern that night, you stayed outside the door, but the female dwarves brought out many high-proof liquors, and the evaporating alcohol fumes were enough to make you dizzy. Fortunately, you had a large amount of antidote and escaped their clutches. Thus, after 3 months of wits and bravery, you finally obtained 1,000 qualified magic tools, including 700 10th tier tools, 250 11th tier tools, and 50 world-class tools. At this point, Lin Tian directly interrupted the life simulation. Because he could finally escape this hell, Lin Tian took back his previous words, what a damned paradise. Summary. You felt the terrifying side of a peach blossom luck for the first time. Boys should protect themselves when out and about. Score. 50 out of 100. Reward. 50 life points. This life simulation is complete, with a time progression of 3 months. The scene shifted. Lin Tian was still in the familiar palace, but 3 months had already passed. He went to the magic tool warehouse to check and found it indeed filled with all kinds of magic tools. Colorful and radiant, they were so dazzling that they could blind anyone with their brilliance. This is a magic tool warehouse. 1,000 pieces, 50 world-class ones. A nationwide mobilization almost matched what the dwarves had forged in hundreds of years. Lin Tian thought, it was best that he hadn't used violence. At first, he had planned to capture all the little lawless. To enjoy them slowly and force them to forge tools. But now, he realized these people were his subjects and could be ordered around. Not capturing them was actually better. Only some obsessed girls were truly crazy. In broad daylight. Indeed, while others sought alms, they. Space magic ring. Time magic ring. During his inspection, Lin Tian found these 2 exquisite magic tools placed in a box. Space magic ring. One of the top 10 magic rings crafted by ancient dwarves. It can store a large number of items without increasing the ring's weight, but it is limited to inanimate objects. Living beings that enter will have their souls trapped forever. Lin Tian's eyes lit up. In this world, it was indeed a great item. Unlike the fantasy cultivation world, space storage tools were extremely precious. However, this was definitely not one of the top 10 ancient magic rings. It was probably a replica made by some dwarf artisan. As for the other ring, it was definitely world-class. Time magic ring. One of the top 10 magic rings crafted by ancient dwarves. It can store time to fast forward or rewind, and even steal someone else's lifespan. Lin Tian immediately put these 2 treasures on his fingers. Having 10 of them would be even better. But after searching everywhere, he only found these 2 ring-type magic tools, and he didn't like the other jewelry-type magic tools. He then pocketed all of them in one go. This space ring is crafted so perfectly. Lin Tian couldn't help but laugh. Previously, he had planned to sneak them out, but now it was unnecessary. He then closed the door to the magic tool warehouse. It was time to find that old guy Bill. He wasn't sure if the magic tool he had requested had been successfully forged. Arriving outside the forge, Lin Tian felt an invisible pressure permeating the air. The large forge that previously could accommodate 10 craftsmen forging simultaneously, now only had Bill's old yet upright figure. Holding a hammer, he was frantically hammering away. Each clash of metal resonated with the soul. Gradually, sparks of lightning began to burst from his hammering. The sound of hammering became thunderous. Oh my, as expected of Master Bill. Did he really forge it? A half-moon class magic tool. With the addition of thunder bull horns, he managed to replicate the power of thunder. Even with a fragmented forging blueprint, Master Bill could recreate it. I have a lot to learn. The top dwarf artisans exclaimed in amazement. After a long time, Bill placed the red-hot magic tool into the quenching pool. This time, instead of the special quenching liquid, it contained the blood of dwarves. With the sound of sizzling bubbles, Bill used tongs to retrieve the magic tool. It was a spear. Ziz. A wild bolt of lightning struck Bill's face on the spot. Everyone's hearts jumped, wanting to check on him. Bill covered his face, marked by a lightning wound. I'm fine, don't come over. Enduring the rampant lightning, he continued hammering the spear. But he used a different hammer, one inscribed with many runes. Each strike imprinted a rune on the spear. Finally, the spear gradually calmed down. Bill held it in his hand, the sky changing color. Thunder and lightning. It was like the arrival of Zeus, bringing a powerful visual shock. Although it can't compare to the original spear of Zeus crafted by pure-blood ancient dwarves, it can be considered a half-moon class weapon. Bill said with a sigh, holding the spear as if filled with power. Above the world, the sun, moon, and stars. A half-moon class weapon, only usable by the gods above the world. Now, it was in his hands. He aimed it at a towering small mountain outside the city. Gathering strength, preparing to throw. The power of thunder began to surge in his hand, crackling as if he were bathed in lightning. Swish. The spear transformed into a sky-shattering bolt of lightning, shooting towards the small mountain. In an instant, a sea of thunder erupted there. The top of the small mountain was directly blasted apart. Then, the loud explosion reached them, accompanied by a gale, blowing so hard that people couldn't open their eyes. Oh my, it's been a long time since we've seen the power of a half-moon class magic tool. How gratifying. We shouldn't be lazy. With our dwarven skills, we should make more of these to sell and have endless drinks. Ha ha ha. Yes, and we can eat all kinds of pies. Hee hee. The dwarves were not warlike, possessing such divine forging skills, yet still thinking about selling for money to drink. Clearly capable of robbing, yet they honestly gave you money. Lin Tian felt both speechless and fortunate. If they were warlike, it would have been impossible to obtain these magic tools. On the forge, Bill looked extremely weak after the throw, stretching out his hand, and the spear flew back as lightning. Your Highness Dennis, this is the magic tool I forged for you, the Spear of Zeus. Although it's not the genuine article, it's sufficient. Bill said, panting with exhaustion. Lin Tian hurriedly went up to support him and took the spear. Overall, it looked like an ordinary spear, except the front part was a half Z-shaped lightning form, and the shaft was covered with various ancient runes. Chapter 92. Obtaining the magic tool, farewell to the dwarf kingdom. TL. Sungman. After a long while, Bill slightly recovered. He explained, the Spear of Zeus consumes a lot of energy. Only those with abundant energy can use it effectively without becoming weak. This characteristic was very fitting for Zeus, the chief of the Olympian gods. Zeus was indeed full of energy. No wonder Bill couldn't handle it after just one use. This was also why he recreated the Spear of Zeus for Lin Tian. After all, he had taken down hundreds of people in the tavern. So that's how it is. But this thing, against the undead and the holy types. Lin Tian was pleased, but his main reason for having the magic tool made was to deal with the Great Tomb and the church. It seemed that the Spear of Zeus didn't have any special properties against them. Bill explained, the Spear of Zeus can restrain the undead and balance out the holy types, making it the best choice. Suddenly, Lin Tian understood. Even though Lin Tian was a monster, he could still use it, as dwarves were also a type of monster. Olympian gods were somewhat different from the god of the church. Even monsters could use the power of the Olympian gods because their power came from nature. Zeus, thunder, Poseidon, the sea. I see. Thank you, Master Bill. Lin Tian was about to leave. He was suddenly called back. Wait, it hasn't been bound yet. Drip your blood into the refining liquid. Only then can you summon it back directly when you throw it. Magic tools were different from regular weapons. Moreover, this was a half-moon class item. Lin Tian cut his palm and dripped blood into the strange refining liquid. Suddenly, Bill's brows furrowed slightly, showing a hint of surprise as he held the spear, hesitating to put it into the refining liquid. What's wrong, Master? Lin Tian asked in confusion. Bill looked at him, a trace of fear flashing in his eyes, but he quickly recovered. He completed the refining of the Spear of Zeus. Only then did Lin Tian truly possess it. No one but him could unleash its power, and others would even be harmed by it. With the item in hand, Lin Tian didn't linger. After leaving a letter, he headed straight for the city outskirts. The letter's main message was about going out on an adventure and leading the dwarves back to the surface. This would not only dispel any doubts but also establish a more majestic image in the dwarves' hearts. The plan went smoothly. No one discovered him along the way. But when he reached the cliff path, just a step away from the outside, a familiar figure suddenly appeared. It was Bill. Your Highness Dennis. No, what is your real name? Now, Bill wore ancient silver armor and held an imposing warhammer, probably of world-class quality. He was no longer the amiable person from before. In his youth, he was the #1 warrior of the dwarves. Lin Tian's expression changed, warily asking, Master Bill, what is this? Bill laid it all out. Stop pretending. Your blood was green just now. You're not a dwarf at all. Instead, only one race has blood similar to ours, and that's goblins. What are you talking about? Lin Tian squinted his eyes, already intent on killing. The dwarves still had their uses. Although Bill was valuable, he was not worth more than the entire dwarf race. If he let Bill go back, the image he had built would collapse. Despite his wrinkles, Bill's eyes were sharp and shrewd. The space magic ring is probably filled with the magic tools we've crafted recently, right? Why bother? I really don't want to kill you. Lin Tian instantly vanished from his spot, transforming into his hideous goblin form, appearing behind Bill. He pounced, pinning Bill to the ground, stomping on him hard. His strength was over 5,000, while Bill's was only 2 or 3,000. There was no comparison. He also manipulated the life armor to envelop the hammer, embedding it deeply into the ground. Bill didn't even have the chance to use his world-class weapon. So you really are a goblin, a high tier 1. I was just curious why you went to such lengths to obtain so many magic tools instead of simply stealing them. Such cunning. Bill couldn't help but marvel. Looking at Lin Tian's sharp teeth and blood-red eyes, he said. The pressure was immense. Lin Tian didn't rush to kill him. He explained, what else? Of course, it's to fight the Great Tomb and the Church. I come from the Lionheart Empire. What? The Great Tomb, the Church. No wonder you had me craft those weapons. It seems your strength far surpasses that of our entire kingdom. Bill was still awestruck. He had heard of the Great Tomb and the Holy Church. To be able to oppose such forces, Lin Tian's strength was unimaginable to him. Sighing, Bill added, I see you're a high-tier intelligent species and seem to have no malice towards us. I just hope that when the time comes, you can lead the dwarves back to the surface. I believe under your influence, they might even serve you. In the past few months, Lin Tian had been the focal point of the entire dwarf kingdom. Bill had been keeping an eye on him. Even now that he knew Lin Tian was a goblin, with his wisdom, he would definitely not harm the dwarves. Instead, he would make good use of them. If Lin Tian were human, Bill would fight to the death. Upon hearing this, Lin Tian retracted the life armor and released his foot. Master Bill, I'm glad you understand me. If we meet again in a few months, I would welcome the dwarves to join my empire. Empire. Bill's eyelid twitched as he watched Lin Tian's departing figure in astonishment. I never expected that after decades of the dwarves staying underground, the outside world has changed so much that even goblins have plans to establish a nation. He sighed, rubbing his old waist that had almost been broken, and slowly made his way back. Lin Tian's plan to establish a nation was not just idle talk. If his tribe could survive the great battle in 2 months, the remaining resources would be enough to establish a nation. On one side was the Great Tomb, on the other was the Lionheart Empire. If he could annex them all, he could even create a force not weaker than those super empires. After leaving the Dwarf Kingdom, he whistled, and Xiao Huan excitedly flew down. He immediately headed towards the Tian Kuang tribe. After several months, who knew what had happened there? On the way, Lin Tian passed through the Lionheart Empire, his expression grave. Wow, so many people are heading towards the Imperial City, and they're still recruiting soldiers. On every small and large road, there were groups of travelers with large and small bags on their way. Like ants returning to their nest. But no matter how many there are, I will surely win this time. Lin Tian accelerated, sweeping across the sky. The space ring on his hand emitted a faint black glow. This was the glow of victory. Ellipsis. The Tian Kuang tribe. It was like a bustling marketplace, noisy and chaotic, with people feeling uneasy and somewhat agitated. Because there were simply too many goblins now. And a large number of breeding monsters. On the eastern side of the valley, the area was densely packed with low-level goblins. The breeding ground for monsters was built there, producing frantically day and night. Weiju specifically captured low-level monsters like pigs, cows, dogs, and rats to breed goblins. They had many mammary glands. A single litter could be raised directly. In 3 months, they had produced 50,000 low-level goblins. Additionally, other high-tier monsters had produced about 10,000, all of which had evolved into big variants. As for hero variants, they hadn't started developing yet. That would consume too many resources and flesh, so they would decide after Lin Tian returned. Wow, it's so lively here. From a distance, Lin Tian noticed and heard the situation inside the tribe. He couldn't help but feel shocked. The sheer number of goblins was enough to make one's scalp tingle. The eastern valley was almost out of space. He had to land on the western side. Look, the boss is back. When they saw the familiar bipedal dragon, the goblins were overjoyed. Boss, oh my boss, I've missed you so much. Woohoo, my boss. Hearing their bizarre welcome, Lin Tian had Xiao Huan breathe a dragon flame, burning them into a panicked scramble. He scolded, stop acting foolish. Weiju, you did a great job. There must be 50 or 60,000 goblins here, right? After landing, he praised Weiju with a pat. She replied happily, about that many. Alright, Gobu Kuang, you 3 better not be causing any trouble. Immediately, Lin Tian's expression turned cold. The 3 of them stood at attention, not daring to move. Gobu Kuang scratched his head and grinned foolishly. No, We just accidentally went out and accidentally raided a few towns, and accidentally captured a few adventurer teams. Boss, I followed your orders and monitored the Lionheart Empire's movements, but accidentally provoked the church and was chased for half a month. Gobu Tian said awkwardly. Hee, I'm the most honest. I didn't do anything. Gobu Shan proudly puffed out his chest, as if he were the most obedient. Lin Tian glanced at the distant adventurers, tortured to the point of being unrecognizable, knowing exactly who was responsible. It was none other than Gobu Shan, who seemed the most gentle. Lin Tian sighed like an exasperated father. You guys never stop causing trouble. Fine, here are some great treasures for you. At this moment, Alice, who had been resting in the cave, also walked out. When she saw Lin Tian suddenly take out a world-class magic tool, she was stunned. That's, Alice exclaimed in disbelief. She had seen some things in her time, but world-class weapons were rare. Now, a real world-class weapon was right in front of her. An unprecedented shock hit her worldview. The Void Dagger. Gobu Tian, you take it. It's very powerful, so use it carefully. In Lin Tian's hand appeared a dark blue dagger, with a handle that swirled with a black hole-like effect. It could create a basketball-sized teleportation point, just enough for Gobu Tian to pass through. When attacking others, the damage would cause a void effect, impossible to heal or repair. A single stab would leave a void-like hole. The heart would disappear, the brain would disappear, and no one could save them. Chapter 93. Danger, the severely injured cannibal eagle. TL. Sungman. When Gobu Tian took the dagger, he felt the terrifying power within it and trembled. Thank you, boss. Immediately after, Lin Tian took out 4 more 11th tier magic weapons, a sword, shield, axe, and halberd. They were all exquisitely made and forged from rare ores. Most importantly, these weapons could release and enhance magical attacks. Lin Tian said, Gobu Kwang, these weapons are for you. They serve as magical mediums, releasing different magical attacks. I'm so touched, boss. By the way, I also captured a few beautiful female adventurers over there, kept them for you. Gobu Kwang suddenly remembered and mentioned. Upon hearing this, Lin Tian felt very gratified. It's good that you have this thought, but I'm not interested right now. He had almost met his end in the Dwarf Kingdom, because of its women. He hadn't had any such desires for some time now. But since Gobu Kwang was so considerate, he decided to give him a world-class magic weapon later. What about me, boss? At this moment, Gobu Shan said expectantly. Lin Tian gave him a stern look. You have an unhealthy mindset. Remember to correct it. Here. With that, he took out a long spear and a sturdy shield, both gleaming with brilliance. Another world-class weapon. Nearby, Alice and Goblin Slayer, who had been in contact with the human world, were utterly shocked. Lin Tian explained, this is called Athena's spear and shield, top-tier equipment in both attack and defense. Remember to disguise it well, don't show off too much. They were indeed too extravagant. They would easily attract attention. Gobu Shan was trembling with excitement. Even though he didn't fully understand, he knew how precious and powerful these weapons were. He was overwhelmed with gratitude. Boss, I'd die for you without hesitation. HMPH, just empty words. Lin Tian said proudly. In his heart, he was still fond of these few. They had been loyal and had followed him since they were young. As their wisdom grew, their rebellious nature gradually diminished. Even if Lin Tian couldn't defeat them, they wouldn't vie for the boss's position. Finally, Alicenia couldn't help but ask, Messenger, where did you get so many high-tier magic weapons? Just these few pieces surpass the entire stock of the Lionheart Empire and the Church. The Lionheart Empire had no world-class weapons, and the Church only had one. How could they not be astonished? Thanks to the guidance of God, I found the dwarves, who forged these magic weapons for me. Lin Tian said solemnly. This explanation was the only one that could make them believe. God, dwarves. Oh my, so the dwarves weren't extinct. They've been searched for across the continent for decades without success, and yet. Alice was excited and amazed, more convinced than ever that Lin Tian was a divine messenger. Seeing her, Lin Tian remembered, oh right, take this weapon. He then took out a few world-class magic weapons he had discovered early on in the magic weapon vault. The ominous blade and the eye of the darkspawn. With Jamila's help, these two world-class magic weapons had been fused together. Not only could they unleash the power of the demon dragon, but if the souls within the eye of the darkspawn could be controlled and conquered. One could even gain the ability to transform into a darkspawn. transforming into one of the most brutal, powerful ancient races. A race born from bloodlust, war, and death. Lin Tian wasn't confident he could do it, but he believed Alice could, so he directly handed the fused weapon to her. What is this? Such a strange and terrifying aura. Even Alice felt a sense of dread at first sight of the fused weapon. After all, the demon dragon was the most savage dragon of ancient times, killed only through a joint effort by the continent. The Darkspawn were even more terrifying. After the establishment of the war rules system by various countries, wars were controlled, and the Darkspawn gradually went extinct. Each one of them had power far surpassing Alice. It was normal to feel dread. The black bone blade seemed alive, and the eye of the Darkspawn at the junction of the hilt and blade stared fixedly at Alice. An ominous aura filled the entire valley. Everyone around felt a chill down their spines. Lin Tian couldn't care less. Alice needed a handy weapon to bring out her true power. Go, pick it up. This is a weapon bestowed upon you by God. Conquer it. But, shouldn't God give me a holy weapon? Alice asked, full of doubt. She had already raised Lin Tian and their child for several months without being tainted by the blood of ruin, and her holy power had long been restored. But she firmly stood by Lin Tian's side. Until she redeemed the church and the empire, those devils. Lin Tian was slightly stunned but explained, this weapon contains powerful magical creatures. You should conquer them to prevent them from falling into the wrong hands and harming the world. Isn't this a sacred mission? Upon hearing this, Alice seemed to understand something. Her cold gaze became more determined. Alice reached out and picked up the ominous blade. In an instant, it felt as though her head would explode, with two strange and terrifying forces surging into it. In a daze, she saw an enormous demonic dragon, over 1,000 meters long, roaring. There was also a blood-soaked monster, several meters tall, fiercely fighting in the midst of a war-torn crowd. The scene was blood-red and creepy, the stench of death was almost palpable. Yes, just like that, pick me up, go kill, incite wars, plant seeds of hatred. I will grant you unmatched power. A sinister, raspy, and evil voice echoed in Alice's mind. It came from the Darkspawn. She saw that the hand holding the ominous blade was being eroded, covered in spider web-like crimson cracks. They were deepening. Alice's eyes started to turn red, as if she was becoming a true Darkspawn. Oh my god, what is this thing? I've never felt anything like this, it's terrifying. Gobu Kwang and the others couldn't help but tremble. Their eyes were filled with fear and anxiety. Every creature, whether monster or human, in the Tian Kwang tribe, was affected. Regardless of the race, the terrifying memories of the ancient times dominated by the Darkspawn seemed to awaken within their souls. Suddenly, the voice of the Darkspawn quivered, as if sensing fear. You. Swish. Alice's entire body was enveloped in intense holy light, and she regained her noble and sacred appearance. But her soul had already been reborn. HMPH, you think you can deceive me? God is with me. Alice let out a soft shout, forcibly suppressing the power of the Darkspawn. The demonic dragon also settled down, no longer restless. Alice's beautiful, snow-white chest heaved with heavy breaths. Indeed, God has helped me. This was the right choice, messenger, I will see it through to the end. God is with you, Lin Tian replied. He no longer feared Alice's betrayal. Having already slaughtered so many, even if she realized the truth, she wouldn't dare admit it. She could only walk this path to the end. He then gave her a 10th tier defensive armor that matched her current aura. It was pitch black and imposing. Next, he gave Gobu a world-class accessory, Tear of Cupid. If the wearer suffered a fatal injury, they would be protected in an indestructible tear-shaped crystal. No one could break it, only the power of love could. Goblin Slayer also received a world-class accessory, the Divine Bracelet. It was somewhat like a Pokeball. It could store loyal subordinates within the divine spaces of the bracelet, releasing them to fight at any time. And it could enhance them. It could store up to 6 divine spaces at a time. When the time comes, go capture some goblin overlords to strengthen them to the level of goblin kings, Lin Tian smiled and said. Goblin Slayer, holding the world-class magic item, felt as if she were in a dream, but what if I most want to capture you? Don't joke around. The remaining items were for the elves. Cassandra remained unchanged, like a proud little goblin, her arrogance written on her face. Even though everyone else was amazed, she acted indifferent. Leah, on the other hand, was still mature and alluring. Over time, as she helped Lin Tian with various tasks, she had become somewhat reliable. I never thought that the leader of a small goblin tribe of 100 could grow to this extent, Leah sighed, grateful for her choice. Although Lin Tian had slaughtered her kin, as the tribe matriarch, she had to endure, ensuring the survival of the rest. Perhaps she didn't have grand ambitions, but she was a good tribe matriarch. The elves, who initially misunderstood, were now grateful. Lin Tian took out a world-class longbow and said, "There should be no barriers between us now. I trust you. Take this. The elves are an important combat force for our Tian Kuang tribe. God-hunting longbow. When fully charged for 3 seconds, it would hit the target with 100% accuracy, unavoidable." This was the perverse nature of world-class magic items. Lin Tian still had dozens of them, like cabbages. Although the trip to the dwarf kingdom nearly killed him, it was worth it. Fortunately, he hadn't used violence. Otherwise, he would have only obtained the 3 initial items from the magic vault. Leah, extremely moved, took the longbow. "Boss, I will always follow you." She knelt on one knee as she spoke. Lin Tian looked down and saw something bigger than his head, swallowing his saliva. "Ahem, you can get up now." He needed to abstain for a few months, couldn't afford to break his resolve. Cassandra remained proud. HMPH, trash. It's just a bow, what's so special about it? Child, you can't be rude to the boss. Leah scolded quickly. Lin Tian indicated it was fine, patting her little head. "You've grown taller. I have to stand on tiptoe to touch your head now. What weapon do you want?" "I don't want anything. HMPH. Cassandra pouted and turned away. Lin Tian thought for a moment and took out a pair of earrings. Although they were 11th tier magic items, they were enough. He said, "Kalin's earrings." In dwarf legends, Kalin was the most beautiful demigoddess, but she was killed by a god who envied her. Whoever wears these earrings will become the most beautiful woman in the world in others' eyes. It was essentially a charm effect. Cassandra's heart was itching as she looked at the alluring earrings and snatched them away. HMPH, I'll forgive you today, trash. Lin Tian smiled relievedly. He'd deal with this little one when fully recovered. He had given out almost everything. The remaining magic items would be bestowed upon the elite army once established. Giving them out now would be wasteful. By the way, boss, the cannibal eagle lord came by a while ago, looking very wretched, with one of its wings broken. It seemed to be looking for you but left since you weren't here. Gobu Yu remembered and said. Goblin Slayer added, we wanted to ask what happened, but it didn't say anything. The cannibal eagle, I'll go check. You all should hide these magic items well, don't make them too conspicuous. After giving instructions, Lin Tian rode away on Xiaohuan. The cannibal eagle was one of his closest allies in this great tomb. Despite having no blood relation, it treated him sincerely. A rare friend indeed, and he couldn't stand by when it was in trouble. Chapter 94. Revenge. TL. Sungman. Following his memory, he quickly arrived at the giant forest. It was still a familiar scene, with tall trees reaching the clouds and massive trunks that made a strong visual impact. This was far more shocking than the myriad forms forest where the elves lived. Brother Birdman sure knows how to choose a place to live. There's no fear of encountering any threats here, Lin Tian couldn't help but remark. Soon, he saw the nest of the cannibal eagle tribe. Some cannibal eagles were resting outside. However, upon closer inspection, Lin Tian frowned. Many of those cannibal eagles seemed to be injured. Some were even seriously wounded, with bones exposed. When they noticed Lin Tian, the cannibal eagles clearly panicked and started scattering, hiding in their nests. They cautiously stuck their heads out to check. Don't be afraid, it's me, Goblin, Lin Tian called out, having visited a few times and being somewhat familiar. The cannibal eagles timidly came out. Seeing their miserable state, Lin Tian frowned and asked, what's happened to you? How did you get hurt here? These injuries were unusual. Regardless of age or gender, everyone was injured, and it was clearly from beatings. A group of cannibal eagles cowered, not daring to speak. Where's Brother Birdman? Don't tell me he's bullying you guys. Lin Tian cursed and started looking around. At this moment, a female cannibal eagle came out and said, the Lord, he fell ill. She was the wife of the cannibal eagle lord. However, she looked very haggard, with many feathers forcibly plucked. Fell ill. Lin Tian hurried into the nest behind her. On a simple pile of grass, the cannibal eagle lord lay. His eyes were tightly closed, his whole body shivering in pain as if suffering from severe chills. Moreover, he was missing a wing. What the hell happened? How did the lord end up like this? Lin Tian quickly asked. His wife immediately burst into tears. It's the lords from the west and north, they did this, boo-hoo. They came once before and beat him badly. He thought about asking you for help, but you weren't around. He couldn't bear to ask your tribe for help, fearing they would get hurt, boo-hoo. Then, when he came back, those lords brought their tribes over, broke his wing, roasted it in front of us, and ate it. They also beat us all, boo-hoo. The female cannibal eagle sobbed as she spoke. She was very pitiful. Lin Tian's eyes twisted with rage, scaring the cannibal eagles outside who had gathered to look. They quickly retreated. He questioned, why did the northern and western lords attack you? Aren't they afraid of the Great Tomb's wrath? Because my lord introduced you to the Great Tomb and you became the Grand Lord, they bore a grudge, the female cannibal eagle continued. Lin Tian squinted, exuding a terrifying cold aura, and slowly nodded, I understand, madam. I'm really sorry for causing Brother Birdman to end up like this. Please wait a moment. I'll be back soon. Then, Lin Tian brought his pet Ifreya to the cannibal eagle tribe. Now, she had mastered many healing and defense magic spells. However, she couldn't learn world-class magic yet, as her level wasn't high enough, it had to be over level 99. Lin Tian looked at everyone and asked, can you heal them? Ifreya, full of confidence, said, don't worry, master. These external injuries are easy to heal. High-tier magic. Healing rain. From the sky, a green rain fell. It covered 10 times the area it did before, even directly covering half of the cannibal eagle tribe. In one go, it healed all the injured cannibal eagles. Their injuries visibly recovered. Oh my god, is this healing magic? I healed so quickly. Thank you, Lord Goblin. Our lord is saved too, great. The cannibal eagles were extremely excited. Despite being a lord's tribe, they were in a pitiful state now. Lin Tian then took Ifreya into the nest. Can you heal him? Looking at Brother Birdman's injuries, Ifreya frowned. I can't restore his wing unless I learn that world-class magic. For now, I can only heal him. Really? That's enough. Lin Tian was slightly surprised, not expecting that world-class magic could achieve such feats. He just needed to save Brother Birdman. Ifreya picked up her magic book and cast super tier magic, Redemption Star. In the night sky, a meteor flashed by, taking away Brother Birdman's pain. Gradually, he finally opened his eyes, breathing steadily. Little Tian, why are you here? Am I hallucinating, or did I die? The pain is gone. Brother Birdman, it's me. You're not dead, and it's not a hallucination. I've come to save you. Lin Tian said. Looking at the familiar faces and hearing his wife's relieved and excited sobs, the cannibal eagle finally came to his senses. But then he clenched his fists in anger. Those damned bastards. Little Tian, I want to ask you for a favor. No need to say it, I already planned to do that. Lin Tian replied coldly, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. The cannibal eagle was deeply grateful. With your word, I'm relieved. Let's gather a large number of monsters and give those two lords in the north and west a good beating. Beat them. Hey, hold on, I've got something for you first. Lin Tian took out an 11th tier magic tool. Blades of wings. Swish. This pair of wings, full of sharp blades, was crafted from Rhine's metal. They were very light but incredibly durable, especially sharp. Combined with the dwarves' enchantment, the user's speed would greatly increase. Everyone's eyes were drawn to these wings. They were stunning, with an overall black tone accented by silver edges, giving a cold and noble feel. The cannibal eagle, having participated in the Great Tomb and Church's Holy War, had seen many magic tools. He could recognize at a glance that this was a high-tier magic tool, extremely precious. He hurriedly refused. Little Tian, I can't accept something so precious. Lin Tian looked helpless. Do you think I need a pair of wings? Saying that, he prepared to install the wings on the cannibal eagle. But before that, the remaining wing had to be broken. The cannibal eagle gritted his teeth. Do it. Swish. As soon as the words fell, Lin Tian gave him no time to prepare mentally and directly used the blades of wings to cut off his wing. The longer the wait, the greater the mental pressure. Ah! The excruciating pain made the cannibal eagle's feathers stand up. Ifreya quickly healed his wound. Immediately after, Lin Tian placed the blades of wings on his back, pressed a mechanism, and a row of fine long needles embedded into the flesh, completing the installation. Be careful, the sharpness of this thing is no joke. After installing, Lin Tian said. He was really afraid that a single flap would dismember everyone. The cannibal eagle cautiously walked outside. Swish. He spread the huge blades of wings, almost 10 meters wide. Each feather was a sharp butcher's knife. Then, as he flapped his wings, he turned into a blur and disappeared into the giant forest. The wings emitted a faint magical glow. He gained a speed boost. Flying past a towering tree, the next second, the giant tree was cut in half and fell with a crash. He could also shoot feathers, which were enough to pierce through a tree trunk. Little Tian, this thing is amazing. I don't know how to thank you. The cannibal eagle flew back excitedly. Lin Tian said calmly, it's nothing, it's not precious to me. Let's get going. I'm eager to feel the thrill of tearing their flesh apart. Although the cannibal eagles were thrilled, they were also a bit frightened. This goblin seemed like a different person. Terrifyingly deep, once a harmless little lackey, now finally showing his sharp edge. I've longed for this moment as well. The cannibal eagle's sharp eyes gazed into the distance. The flames of revenge were ignited. Lin Tian returned to notify Gobu Kwang, Alice, and the others to set off, just in time to test the magic tools he had obtained. To avoid embarrassment from not knowing how to use them later. Ellipsis. Western region of the Great Tomb. This area was rich in resources, mainly composed of water sources like rivers and lakes. Beneath the calm and deep waters lurked many fierce and terrifying monsters. At this moment, a low-tier monster, a giant-eyed dragonfly, was laying eggs on the lake's surface. Just as its tail touched the water's surface, a webbed hand suddenly reached out from below and grabbed the dragonfly's tail. It was a member of the water demon tribe, the ruler of the western lake. They looked somewhat human but had fish-like bodies and moved very quickly in the water. Upon coming ashore, they would transform into legs. With brown skin and dirty, wet long hair. Their faces were twisted and pockmarked, with no eyelids, and gills on their necks were blood red. Extremely ugly. They exposed their dense sharp teeth and bit off the dragonfly's head, sucking the thick, foul-smelling juice. In a few gulps, it was sucked dry. Casually tossing it aside, they dove back into the water to lurk. This season is when giant-eyed dragonflies lay eggs. Water demons love to suck their juices. Despite the calm water, many water demons are lurking below. On a protruding boulder on a hillside, the cannibal eagle explained. Behind him were Lin Tian, his group, and many goblins, including Leah and Alice. Underwater. Huh, I can't swim, Gobu Kwang said, scratching his head. The others were the same. Lin Tian squinted his eyes darkly. Perfect, let's develop some goblins that are naturally good swimmers. These water demons are the best breeding tools. But how do we lure them out? Leah asked helplessly. They were underwater, and knowing there were so many people above, they wouldn't come out rashly. Lin Tian smiled crookedly. I don't believe only water demons live in this lake. He then used the call skill. With his mind, he controlled all the monsters in the lake, as long as they weren't highly intelligent. Everyone stared at the lake. Time passed by, but nothing happened, it remained calm. At this moment, a surge of crimson blood churned in the lake. Gradually, large amounts of blood appeared around, increasing until the entire lake turned into a blood lake. Chapter 95. Are you lucky or unlucky? TL. Sungman. Swish. A large number of water demons leapt out of the lake. There were several hundred of them. Their faces were full of surprise and shock, some even had wounds on their bodies. What's going on? Have those beasts gone mad? They bite me as soon as they see me. Even after killing many of them, they still chased and bit me. Being chased and bitten by low-level monsters is nothing. I was swallowed by a big monster fish at the bottom of the lake. Fortunately, I crawled out through its gills. Who on earth is behind this? The water demon's sharp and ear-piercing voices resounded as they discussed the sudden incident. Boom. At this moment, the water demon lord, several times larger than the others, jumped out. His entire body was covered in rugged muscles, with a ferocious fish face. After coming ashore, he transformed into a humanoid shape, able to stand on two legs. In his hands, he held a giant crocodile and a devil black fish. Both were powerful 7th-tier monsters. The water demon lord's expression was gloomy and terrifying. He crushed the two 7th-tier monsters to death. Something is wrong. Someone is controlling these beasts. HMPH, I didn't expect you to be smart. At this moment, Lin Tian and his group came down, with the cannibal eagle coldly speaking. The water demon lord was slightly stunned, then sneered disdainfully after seeing clearly. Hee hee, isn't this the little chick I plucked a while ago? How has your feather grown back? He then noticed the group of goblins. He paid them no mind. Ah, so you called for help. But you should get your eyes checked if you think goblins can deal with me. Ha ha ha. The other water demons also burst into laughter, their voices sharp and creepy. Lin Tian gestured for the cannibal eagle to hold back, then walked to the front. I am now the Grand Lord appointed by the Demon Lord. When you see me, shouldn't you kneel? The water demons glanced at each other. Then they laughed even harder. In this great tomb, the law of the jungle rules. So what if you are the Grand Lord? If I kill you, I will be the Grand Lord. The water demon lord said grimly. He pointed to his toes. With your tiny size, I feel I could crush you to death with my big toe. Ha ha ha. Lord, look over there, a human. And a female one at that. A water demon moved to the front, eyes locked onto Alice. It was filled with extreme desire. The water demon lord finally reacted, licking his lips. Looks like we hit the jackpot today. Capture that woman. The moment his voice fell, a large group of water demons began to shake the fins on the sides of their heads rapidly, howling and releasing piercing sound waves as they charged at Lin Tian's group. However, Lin Tian let out a piercing howl in return. In an instant, the massive group of water demons had their ears and noses bleeding, their brains dizzy, and they lost consciousness. Many of them collapsed on the spot. Lin Tian said, kill the males for roasted fish, keep the females. Immediately, Gobu Kuang and the others began their charge. Gobu Tian's void dagger struck one after another, creating basketball-sized holes in the chests of numerous corpses. No blood flowed out, as their hearts were directly obliterated in the void. On the other side, Gobu Kuang acted like a crazed mage, with demon claws burning with blazing blue flames on his back. Through the weapons on his other four arms, he continuously fired magical attacks. The large blade absorbed the magic flames, unleashing fierce flame slashes. Although not as tangible as Alice's sword chi, the resulting slashing flames burned the water demons into two upon contact. The axe-like weapons, looking like two giant axes, shot out two beams of magical light. In just 4 to 5 seconds, they could melt a water demon. On another front, Gobu Kuang, wielding Athena's spear and shield, charged into the water demon horde, slaughtering wantonly. With the shield in hand, he effortlessly deflected the water demon's sound waves, corrosive toxins, and claw attacks. Seizing their attack openings, he skewered them with his long spear. Stringing them up for roasting on the spot, he reserved some for Lin Tian. Leah's god-hunting longbow only needed to be fully drawn and aimed at someone for 3 seconds before releasing brainlessly. The arrows would automatically track and pursue the target. In just 30 seconds, 8 or 9 water demons had their heads exploded by a single arrow. Because she still needed time to draw the bow and retrieve arrows. What are these things? Are they really goblins? The water demon lord was stunned on the spot. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. A berserk melee mage, a deadly assassin, a brutal warrior, and a precise archer. An overwhelming massacre. Stop. Everyone stop. The water demon lord roared, ready to retaliate, when suddenly a cold light flashed before him. His vision turned pitch black, empty, and he saw nothing. The cannibal eagle had directly slashed his eyes blind with its wings. Today, we will make you remember this forever. Damn chick. I'll kill you. The water demon lord, listening to the direction, reached out to grab the cannibal eagle. Water demons relied on sonar for navigation, so their eyes were actually of little use. Swish, swish, swish. With a single spin, the water demon lord's hand turned into minced meat. The intense pain shot straight to his brain. Lin Tian felt he didn't even need to intervene. With a power of 4,300, Brother Birdman should be able to handle it by himself. However, as long as it didn't rain, everything would be fine. On rainy days, the water demon race received epic level enhancements, with rapid recovery, super strength, super defense, super speed, and other effects. The weather in the Great Tomb was always gray and gloomy. But since there were no clouds in the sky, it probably wouldn't rain. Moments later, the water demon lord was covered in wounds, kneeling on the ground, completely losing the ability to resist. The cannibal eagle's claws had dug out a large amount of flesh. He looked pitted and battered. Crying rain demon, what are you waiting for? The water demon lord cried out in pain. Suddenly, from an unknown direction, the haunting sound of a woman's weeping echoed. It was extremely eerie. As the crying started, clouds began to gather in the sky. It started to rain lightly. Lin Tian's expression changed slightly, but he didn't think it was a big deal. The water demon lord, however, grinned sinisterly. He, little chick, I'm going to pluck every single feather off you. On the ground, the half-dead water demon lord, with eyes bleeding and body full of gruesome wounds, suddenly began to surge with power. His bones creaked, his body growing to 6 or 7 meters. His muscles became even more terrifying, and his injuries visibly recovered. The cannibal eagle sensed trouble. Little Tian, you and your people should retreat. It's raining. Rainy days are his home ground. Too late. Suddenly, a menacing eye appeared next to the cannibal eagle, glaring at him. A terrifying sound wave blasted out, sending him flying into the water. Luckily, his wings were made of metal, otherwise he wouldn't be able to fly again. This was a fatal weakness of the feathered race. The cannibal eagle flew back up, fiercely shooting out several feathers. They were so sharp they could pierce through a 10-meter thick tree trunk. The water demon lord sneered, simply sidestepping. The feathers sparked but did not kill him. In the rain, he had grown armor-like scales. He then spat out a large amount of thick, green poison straight at the cannibal eagle. Brother Birdman, let me help you. Lin Tian said as he finished off a male water demon. Hearing this, the water demon lord attacked first. Just you, a goblin. Low-level monsters will always be low-level monsters. Die. His gigantic fist exploded through the rain, crashing heavily toward Lin Tian. However, Lin Tian's life armor activated, encasing him tightly. Boom. The fist only drove Lin Tian into the ground without harming him at all. The water demon lord laughed triumphantly. No need to dig a grave now, ha ha ha. But then he saw something quickly approaching him from the soil. Lin Tian burst out, clawing down with the power of the blood of ruin, easily piercing the scales and injuring him. The water demon lord felt something wrong. My scales. Wait, what is this? What's corroding my strength from inside? In the next second, his body began to shrink, even though the rain hadn't stopped. His bloodline was polluted, preventing him from using his innate skills. Soon, he returned to his previous size. With a light punch, Lin Tian sent him flying, crashing into a large boulder. An impossible power. Stronger than I was just now. The water demon lord trembled with fear, coughing up blood. His chest bones were largely shattered. He wanted to escape. Madly, he ran toward the lake. Even if the monsters inside attacked him, it was better than facing the goblins. Each goblin far exceeded his expectations. Trying to escape, the cannibal eagle dived, like an eagle hunting its prey, fast, accurate, and deadly. Feeling the pressure from above, the water demon lord's face was full of fear. Damn it. Save me, lake ghost. On the shore, a pitch-black water monster roared, lunging at the cannibal eagle. Its voice was so ear-piercing it seemed as if its throat was tearing. The cannibal eagle reacted quickly but still got his leg wounded, and in the blink of an eye, his entire leg began to turn black and wither. It was clearly poisoned. This lake ghost was covered in black sludge, making it impossible to see its form, and it was bound by many iron chains. Its green eyes glanced at Lin Tian and his group, preparing to return to the lake. But as it turned, it was frightened and stepped back repeatedly. Alice stood there, her face icy and indifferent, holding the ominous blade. The lake ghost felt an inexplicable terror. This woman in black armor, holding a weapon filled with evil aura, was not to be trifled with. The cannibal eagle urgently warned, Alice, get out of here. The lake ghost is from the ghost tribe. It feels no pain and has no physical form. Those remains and chains are just its vessels. If wounded by ghost energy, you'll quickly lose your vitality. His leg was the best example. Completely devoid of life. The lake ghost, bracing itself, pounced at Alice. The next second, before it could see clearly, it was sliced into pieces. Is that the smell of a ghost? Filthy and foul, but you, Alice, are still quite fragrant. Roar. In the lake ghost's consciousness, a disdainful voice and a terrifying dragon roar echoed. Two extremely powerful and frightening forces pressed down, almost shattering its soul. What is this? No. Finally, the lake ghost was forcibly dissipated under the pressure of the magic dragon and dark energy. Both were considered spirits, so they affected each other due to magnetic field effects. Seeing the unresponsive lake ghost, the cannibal eagle was dumbfounded. How is it possible? Can weapons kill ghosts? Completely confused. Unfortunately, the water demon lord had escaped. Suddenly, a chilling electric sound echoed, and Lin Tian pulled out the spear of Zeus, surrounded by thunder and lightning. Chapter 96. Snowfield Lord, Snow Spirit. TL. Sungman. The spear of Zeus was suddenly hurled into the lake. Sizzle. Boom. Intense high-voltage lightning surged through the lake. The blinding white light made it impossible to keep one's eyes open. A bolt of lightning as thick as a bowl descended from the sky. It exploded directly in the lake. Waves surged high. Even Alice found it hard to believe, another world-class magical tool. But such power. The lake, spanning dozens of miles, was now covered with the corpses of magical creatures. No creature inside was likely to have survived. Lord, it's over. I thought he could escape. What is this goblin? Why is he so terrifying? The power of thunder. A goblin, impossible. Some of the water demons were on the verge of madness, trembling as they looked at the corpses of their kin scattered everywhere. In no time, the water demon lord also floated to the surface of the lake. His body was charred, his eyes white, barely alive. Lin Tian snorted, I don't know if you're lucky or unlucky. In the water, you had nowhere to escape, but it also diluted the power of the lightning. Otherwise, a single strike would have finished him off. After being unconscious for a long time, the water demon lord finally woke up. The surroundings were very warm and comfortable, but he found that he couldn't move his body, as if paralyzed. When he saw everything clearly, he almost collapsed. The warmth was due to a bonfire roasting water demons. Some were even being roasted alive, their heart-wrenching screams chilling to the bone. Lord, save me! A water demon, seeing him awake, cried out in tears. He was being skewered by Gobu-shan and placed on the fire. The water demon lord panted heavily, on the brink of emotional collapse. Before him, on the fire racks, were his brother, father, and other elders. The roasting made their bodies sizzle and drip with oil. Lin Tian was enjoying the feast. Not bad, the taste is similar to fish but more delicate, and the meat around the waist is the best, just like fish belly. As he spoke, he tore off a piece of fish belly meat, placing it in his mouth where it melted gently. The fragrance lingered on his lips and teeth. Seeing this horrifying scene, the water demon lord shivered. Beasts. A bunch of damned goblins. What are you doing? Give my family's lives back. Oh, you're awake. Lin Tian grinned eerily, still gnawing on a water demon's head, his mouth greasy. The water demon lord felt like he was suffocating, not from lack of water, but from lack of oxygen, gritting his teeth in hatred. However, Gobu-shan approached with a roasted, fragrant little water demon. He held it to the lord's mouth. Do you know what this is? Damned goblin. The water demon lord screamed hysterically, his eyes trembling with hatred, veins bulging on his forehead. Eating was one thing, but to make him eat his own child. The cannibal eagle sat beside him. He had certainly sought revenge but had never imagined going to such lengths. Perhaps, this was what goblins were. However, he did not sympathize, and said, HMPH, what about when you and the Northern Lord were killing my kin? You reap what you sow. The water demon lord was momentarily speechless, filled only with endless regret and anger. But when he turned his head, he saw many female water demons tied up. He questioned, why did you capture them too? Don't go too far. If you have the guts, wipe out my entire water demon clan. Don't worry, I won't do that. They have other uses. Lin Tian said casually, a mischievous smile on his face. If these female water demons weren't so ugly, he would have dealt with them on the spot. Even Gobu Kwang and the others had no interest in them. They could only take them back as breeding tools. The water demon lord seemed to realize something. I beg you, Lord Goblin, please spare my remaining people. They have nothing to do with this. Punish me instead. Admitting fault. I don't have such words in my vocabulary. Lin Tian continued to eat the roasted meat. Only the water demon lord's painful cries and apologies to his people filled the air. His eyes were filled with fear of the goblins. His understanding of this race had been refreshed. He deeply experienced their cruelty and ruthless violence. The water demon lord gritted his teeth in hatred. I swear, I will slaughter all of you one day. As long as he lived, he would have a chance for revenge. His own strength was insufficient, but his relatives in the ocean were enough to crush the goblins. Water demons were a variant of sea demons, accustomed to living in freshwater. Their characteristic was that they became stronger in the rain. Lin Tian couldn't help but be curious, who gave you the illusion that you could survive? The water demon lord was also stunned, then confidently said, do you dare kill me? I was personally appointed by the demon lord as the Western Lord. The golden iguana is nothing compared to me. The cannibal eagle whispered, Little Tian, fighting between lords in the Great Tomb is actually forbidden, unless you are not a lord, then you can challenge. Because this kind of situation could likely develop into internal strife within the Great Tomb, rather than a simple conflict between lords. There once was a 10th tier lord who tried to annex other lords to become the Grand Lord. As a result, the Bone King sent someone to eliminate him directly. Now, This could only be considered a lesson in a conflict, but killing the water demon lord would make the situation serious. However, Lin Tian gestured with his hand. It's fine, I have a plan. When the time comes, I'll make sure you die in utter despair. Even if the water demon lord complained to the Bone King, Lin Tian wouldn't be worried in the slightest. He was currently an indispensable pawn in the Bone King's hands. Anyone could die, but he couldn't. Are you full? It's time to let that guy in the north taste what regret feels like. Lin Tian's eyes gleamed with cold light. He intended to eliminate these rebellious individuals immediately, to prevent any backstabbing during critical moments of the great battle. He didn't rule out the possibility of such a scenario. He didn't want any problems to arise in his plans. Soon, everyone began to move north, while Gobushan took the water demons back to the tribe. They would be kept as breeding tools. The water demon lord wasn't killed, he was handed over to the cannibal eagles tribe for handling. Ellipsis. The Great Tomb spanned several thousand kilometers, with the northern region perpetually covered in snow and extremely cold temperatures. The vast snowy plains seemed endless at a glance. It was hard to distinguish anything. It was easy to get lost here, and with few magical creatures around, most were hiding. Those who weren't frozen to death starved to death. The cold wind howled by their ears, and even Lin Tian couldn't help but shiver. Damn, it's my first time seeing snow. Brr, boss, it's so cold I feel like my teeth are about to shatter. Gobu Kwang's teeth were chattering so much they made a constant clattering sound. The temperature was indeed too low to continue. Goblins didn't have fur and rarely wore clothes. Even the cannibal eagle, covered in thick fur, couldn't stand it, and said helplessly, maybe we should give up for now. We can act when he leaves the north. No need, and time waits for no one. Lin Tian took out a magical tool. Heart of Apollo, a world-class magical tool. It looked like a small sun, floating in his palm. It could emit temperatures as high as the sun, up to thousands of degrees, with an effective range of 10 meters, enough to melt anything close by without harming the user. Lin Tian carefully controlled the temperature, adjusting it to a few hundred degrees to fend off the freezing cold of minus tens of degrees. This made the surroundings warm enough. Everyone was surprised. Alice couldn't help but ask curiously, Messenger, how many magical tools did you get from the dwarves? Well, enough to use. Lin Tian didn't give a direct answer, deflecting the question. An innocent man holding a jade was guilty. He didn't yet have the strength to protect these items. When he left the Great Tomb for the unknown empire where the dwarves were located, Lin Tian realized that powerful entities weren't just in the Great Tomb and the church. There were many even stronger. After all, the Lionheart Empire had only been established for a few decades. There were only a few powerful figures, with Alice being one of them. What about those empires that had lasted for hundreds or thousands of years? They must be full of hidden talents. Under the protection of the Heart of Apollo, everyone felt warm. However, finding the Northern Lord, the red-haired Yeti, was not easy. He was the only one of the four lords who didn't have a clan system and lived alone. His strength was unknown. Lin Tian once again used the Grand Lord's call skill, instructing all the magical creatures in the area to find the red-haired Yeti's whereabouts. The previously calm snowy plains began to stir, with various magical creatures emerging from the snow. Giant rats covered in fur, naive-looking three-tailed hidden foxes, phantom snow owls with eyes like searchlights, and many others. We just need to wait. Being a Grand Lord is convenient. You can command magical creatures anywhere. The cannibal eagle sighed. In such a short time, Lin Tian had grown to this extent. He shattered the long-held stereotype of goblins being stupid and inferior. Previously, even high-tier variants were still seen as goblins, despised and loathed by everyone. Time passed gradually. Finally, a magical creature flew toward them. It had tiny, crystalline wings and a small body no larger than a palm, with snow-white skin and limbs. A snow spirit. However, its originally cute little face was bruised, and its body had some bruises as well. It looked very pitiful. Grand Lord, I know where the red-haired Yeti is. As it spoke, the snow spirit almost collapsed from exhaustion. Leah quickly held it in her hand, pouring some homemade recovery potion on it. Gradually, it recovered. Follow me, he's in a cave. This snow spirit was a high-intelligence species and could choose not to obey Lin Tian's summons. But oppressed by the red-haired Yeti for a long time, it decided to rebel. Worm, get over here. Do you want another beating? This time I'll beat you to death. Even if you can revive, I'll kill you again. A booming voice came from a huge cave. The deafening roar caused a large pile of snow to fall from the cave entrance. When a blizzard lasted for several months without stopping, it would give birth to magical creatures like snow spirits, who could revive after dying during the blizzard. Their greatest function was producing snow crystals, which contained extremely strong magical power. Magical creatures could consume them to level up. In the human world, they were also excellent ornaments and luxury goods. For decades, the red-haired Yeti had enslaved snow spirits, eating many snow crystals. Lin Tian and his group felt the violent magical aura emanating from inside but fearlessly walked in. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 97. Want to complain? Go complain to the Great Tomb. TL. Sungman. Entering the cave, the heart of Apollo in Lin Tian's hand served as a lighting tool. It allowed Leah and the cannibal eagle, who lacked night vision, to see clearly. As they ventured deeper, they saw a filthy monster covered in long red hair squatting on the ground, gnawing on the flesh of a magical beast. The creature, standing over 2 meters tall, was as large as Gobu Kwang. Suddenly, the red-haired Yeti seemed to sense someone approaching and paused what it was doing. Slowly, it turned its head. Its eyes emitted a creepy white glow in the dim cave, appearing lively and terrifying. The stench of the corpse and a strange odor from the creature assaulted their nostrils. Little bug, I've raised you for so long, and you turn out to be an ingrate. You even want to bring people to teach me a lesson. The voice of the red-haired Yeti echoed through the cave, cold and sinister. The snow spirit, frightened, hid in Leah's large bosom, not daring to make a sound. Ah, so cold. Little guy, can you find another place to hide? Leah shivered, her face flushed as she spoke bitterly. At this moment, the red-haired Yeti was taken aback. HMPH, so it's you, that mangy bird. Changed wings. Where's the other one? Roast it for me, don't waste it, ha ha ha. Shut up. The cannibal eagle shouted angrily. He was the one who had torn off its wings and roasted them in the past. Lin Tian squinted his eyes. So it's you. Little guy, if I help you take him out, will you follow me? The magic crystals produced by snow elves could significantly increase experience. As long as he had a large group of snow elves serving him, he could gain a continuous supply of experience fruits. Yes, yes, as long as you don't hurt me. The snow spirit said timidly, eyes full of fear and dread. However, it precisely found the most comfortable, warm, and safe place to hide. Lin Tian smiled with satisfaction. He could avenge the cannibal eagle, eliminate a future threat, and recruit the snow spirit. A triple win, a bloodless profit. The red-haired Yeti looked disdainful. Take me out. A trash goblin dares to think. Trash. Gobu Kwang roared, activating all his magical tools, sending several powerful beams shooting forward. In an instant, the red-haired Yeti was blasted against the wall, blue light flashing like welding sparks. With a loud bang, the cave wall was pierced through. The red-haired Yeti was thrown dozens of meters away, landing on the ground in a sorry state. Its chest hair melted, and the flesh was almost gone. But then, the surrounding snow gathered, reshaping a new body for him. He mockingly said, in this snowfield, you can't kill me. With that, he waved his hand, and the blizzard intensified. Within seconds, the cave was almost buried. Everyone hurried out, but the heavy snow obstructed their vision, making it impossible to see anything. They couldn't even see the person next to them. It was like a torrential snowstorm. The red-haired Yeti's triumphant laughter echoed around, but he couldn't be found. I am the strongest lord. In this endless blizzard, you will die. Before he could finish, he felt a chill on his back. He, a red-haired Yeti, shouldn't fear the cold. But now he felt a chill. He turned abruptly, but before he could see clearly, he was sliced into pieces. Alice's blade fell swiftly, surprisingly easy. She thought this guy had high defense, but it felt as easy as cutting cake. In the distance, the red-haired Yeti reformed his body, his face full of fear. What happened just now? What were those 3 terrifying pressures? Even though he could revive infinitely, he was now trembling all over, feeling a deep cold. It was a fear from the depths of his soul. He absolutely did not want to experience it again. At this moment, Lin Tian increased the power of Heart of Apollo, instantly evaporating the surrounding snow. In the distance, the red-haired Yeti was stunned. What's that thing? Wait. Suddenly, he felt that chilling sensation again. Gobu Tian, possessing a certain degree of X-ray vision, locked onto him and used the void dagger to target his heart. A large hole was opened on the spot. The red-haired Yeti died without making a sound. What kind of monsters are these? Isn't this my domain? After reforming his body, the red-haired Yeti was both frightened and angry. He was supposed to be the ruler of the snowfield. But in the next second, an arrow shot over, exploding his head. Although he could revive infinitely, his body was fragile, and the pain was real. This time, he learned his lesson and revived a bit further away. The cannibal eagle spoke, "Stay close to Little Tian to keep warm. I'll find him." Though he said find, he meant covering the area with firepower. He transformed into a blur, flying at low altitude, his sharp wings capable of annihilating all creatures in his path. He almost formed a tornado. In this wave, the red-haired Yeti died dozens of times in a row. If he didn't revive quickly, the blizzard would stop, making it easier to be hunted down. "Help. I can't take it anymore. You crazy bastards." Helpless, the red-haired Yeti could only stop reviving and halt the blizzard, crawling on the ground like a pile of snow. If he died again, he would collapse. "Forget it, bird brother, leave it to me. We've tortured him long enough. We can't kill him this way," Lin Tian said, signaling everyone to move away from him. He adjusted the heart of Apollo to over 1,000 degrees. The surrounding snow evaporated with a hiss, emitting a large amount of white smoke. It didn't even have a chance to melt into water, perhaps just for an instant. Thunk. In the distance, the red-haired Yeti, now a puddle of an unknown liquid on the ground, sensed something terrifying approaching. It was true death. Melting and evaporating. "Don't come near. I'll die. Stay away from me. I'll really die." The red-haired Yeti crawled desperately, but in this state, he was too slow. He reshaped his form while fleeing, terrified and desperate. Lin Tian, like a grim reaper in the white smoke, approached and said, "You're quite amusing. If I weren't here to kill you, why would I go to such lengths? You madman. We just had a minor conflict. There's no need to kill me. Besides, I'm the Northern Lord. Killing me will anger the Demon Lord." The red-haired Yeti said in a panic while fleeing. Claiming to be invincible in his domain, he now desperately wanted to escape. Lin Tian didn't care about any of this. He charged forward, the high temperature scorching the red-haired Yeti's body, making a sizzling sound. And his screams. "Stop it, I'm melting." The red-haired Yeti's entire body began to blur, his features distorted and slowly melting away. The high temperature rendered him immobile. He could only die bit by bit. The one surefire way to kill him, and they had stumbled upon it by chance. Seeing him now, Lin Tian thought of something familiar. He then extended a finger, dipped it in the melting red-haired Yeti, and tasted it. Not bad, tastes like strawberry ice cream. Finding it delicious, he took a few more big bites. "You beast, you're eating me right in front of me. Do you have to kill my spirit too?" The red-haired Yeti, in excruciating pain, gritted his teeth and cursed. Ding! Congratulations to the host for acquiring the skill, Blizzard Environment. Huh. Lin Tian was stunned. Eating ice cream and gaining a skill was beyond him. However, he couldn't withstand the cold of the blizzard environment, so he used abnormal fusion again. He absorbed a large chunk of strawberry ice cream. If he mutated into the red-haired Yeti's form, he could resist the cold. Your melting rebirth is quite something. Let me see if I can acquire it. Lin Tian thought that since he had come this far, he might as well get another skill. And it was quite a good one. He inadvertently took a few more big bites. The red-haired Yeti, in extreme pain, cried, "You beast, you ate my nipples and ears." Then, with a shocked expression, he said, "Stop. That's my little brother. You can't eat that." Lin Tian looked disgusted, shaking his fingers to get rid of the red-haired Yeti remnants. Damn, he almost ate that. It's best not to eat anymore. What have you done? You evaporated my happiness. You've left me without love. The nearly completely melted red-haired Yeti screamed in agony. Now, he could die in peace. Before he died, he said viciously, "You damned guy, the Demon Lord won't let you off. I'll be waiting for you on the other side." Hearing this, seeing he was about to evaporate, Lin Tian narrowed his eyes and extinguished heart of Apollo. He said coldly, "I've changed my mind. I won't let you die just like that. I should truly destroy your spirit." Now he had a one-for-one idea. He thought that if he died, Lin Tian would die soon after. That way, it wouldn't be too sad. What? The red-haired Yeti didn't react for a moment, but he quickly started to run away. He reshaped his body as he ran, until he disappeared into the vast snow. Everyone hurried over. The cannibal eagle asked in confusion. He escaped. Shall I chase him? No need. And that water demon lord, I'll release him too when we get back. Lin Tian spoke calmly, but there was an extremely evil undertone. It sent chills down everyone's spine. The cannibal eagle didn't object because he never intended to kill them, as it would violate the Great Tomb's rules. Let's go. It's too cold here. Leah shivered, mainly because the snow spirit in her arms was icy cold. Lin Tian then relit Heart of Apollo. But before leaving, he asked, Snow Spirit, what are your plans now? I have none, but I promised you I can produce snow crystals for you. The snow spirit said excitedly, all previous timidity gone. Lin Tian wasn't satisfied with just that. Do you have any kin? Or are you the only snow spirit in this vast snowfield? I can summon them from the wind and snow. Before, I didn't want more snow elves to be enslaved, so I told them not to be born. The snow spirit explained. Lin Tian's eyes lit up. All right, then summon as many snow elves as possible during this time. I'll come find you later. Okay. Ellipsis. The group hurriedly left this frigid place. Lin Tian didn't expect to gain the treasure of the snow spirit unexpectedly. He could hide his trump card army in the snowfield, making it hard to be discovered. And he could also eat snow crystals to level up. This wouldn't arouse suspicion from those in the Great Tomb. Otherwise, the discrepancy between the number of goblin troops and the consumption of magical creatures would easily raise suspicion. He believed those guys inside weren't fools and would notice these things. Next, he would quietly wait for them to complain in the Great Tomb. Chapter 98. The real battle is coming. TL. Sungman. Lord Demon Master, I am so miserable. A large number of my clan members have been slaughtered and eaten, and many females have been captured to become breeding machines. I was doing fine in the northern snowfields, but they attacked me. That goblin named Lin Tian ate me bite by bite, and he also deprived me of love. Inside the underground Great Tomb, the water demon lord and the red-haired yeti cried as they spoke, tears streaming down. Especially the red-haired yeti, whose body parts that melted could never be repaired. It was like a folder being deleted, unable to be copied. Above them were the succubus and the corpse pope, along with the master of this great tomb, the embodiment of ultimate darkness. Bone King. Veronica. The atmosphere in the dark sanctuary was extremely eerie and oppressive. Various strange, mysterious, and powerful monsters stood motionless on the side like statues. They usually stayed in different layers of the sanctuary, only gathering here under special circumstances. Listening to the complaints of the two lords, the others acted as if they didn't hear anything, remaining completely still. Only the succubus looked at Veronica. But she didn't say anything either. Rebecca, take them to the goblin tribe. As for the rest, I don't need to say more. Veronica looked at the succubus and spoke, her expression gloomy. Then, she was enveloped in darkness and slowly disappeared. The water demon and red-haired yeti were ecstatic, as it seemed Rebecca was going to punish the goblins. They knelt and said, Thank you, Lord Demon Master. The succubus Rebecca slowly took 2 steps forward, her body parts that should have shaken did so with great amplitude. Watching her, their souls seemed to sway along. The two lords didn't dare to look at Rebecca, just the fragrance made them burn with desire. If they dared to look and were caught with a lecherous and evil gaze, they wouldn't even know how they died. Follow me, Rebecca said with disdain, not even glancing at them, purely out of contempt. Shush. Immediately, her whole body blurred for a second, as if she was stuck. In reality, she had already disappeared from the spot, flying out of the great tomb. My God, such speed. The water demon swallowed, a few drops of cold sweat forming on his forehead. Even in rainy conditions, he couldn't match her speed by half. The red-haired yeti could only walk on foot. His power relied too much on the snowfield, with only over 2,000 points here, he was nothing. The two of them ran desperately, fearing that falling too far behind would anger Rebecca. Where are you two idiots going? At this time, they had run a few hundred meters out of the great tomb when Rebecca's angry voice sounded behind them. Frightened, they stopped immediately, their faces full of obedient confusion. Rebecca stood with her arms crossed over the vast snowfield, pushing her chest up high. She pointed below. Can't you see the magic teleportation array? Yes, sorry Lady Rebecca. The water demon apologized obediently, sighing at how different the way powerful beings traveled was. The red-haired yeti didn't dare to speak, afraid of saying the wrong thing. They still relied on her to get justice for them. Entering the teleportation array, the three of them disappeared in the blink of an eye. In an instant, they arrived above the valley of the Tian Kuang tribe. Lin Tian, who was busy with breeding, looked up, his brows slightly furrowed at the black-purple beam of light shooting into the sky. It indicated that people from the Great Tomb had used the teleportation array to come here. Gobu Yu had mentioned that while Lin Tian was away, someone had set up the teleportation array. It couldn't be refused. Lin Tian signaled, "Don't worry, keep working, I'll handle it." In the sky, a charming figure appeared, slowly descending. It stopped about 5 meters from the ground, looking aloof. It was the succubus Rebecca. On the cliff, the water demon and red-haired yeti scrambled down, hardening their scalps. Even if they got covered in injuries, they were aggressive. Because they had backing. "Little bastard, today is your death day. I'll make you taste the feeling of being roasted," the water demon lord said with hatred, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was so excited he almost forgot the pain. Finally, it was the moment of great satisfaction. The red-haired yeti was the same. "I'll eat your corpse bit by bit, starting with your little brother. Want to eat? You can come eat now," Lin Tian said, smiling. Rebecca didn't pay attention to Lin Tian at first. She looked around on her own. Disgusting, is that a breeding farm? To produce so many goblins. Even she was quite shocked. The largest goblin tribe she had ever seen. "You are indeed good at running a tribe, no wonder you easily captured a city. I slightly acknowledge your..." Rebecca was speaking when her body suddenly trembled, and she looked behind Lin Tian with a startled expression. It was Alicenia in black armor. Alicenia had come out to see the situation, found it boring, and went back to rest. Rebecca was surprised, thinking, "Is that the sword Saintess? I saw her once before, but why do I feel threatened by her now? Why are you here?" Lin Tian asked irritably, thinking it might have been Bone King Veronica herself. But it turned out to be this annoying succubus. All the goblins below were drawn to her, their faces full of lust, drooling. No wonder Rebecca didn't want to land. Otherwise, her high heels would be soaked with drool. Rebecca noticed that he was different from the other goblins and curiously asked, "Oh. Why do you seem different from them? As a goblin, how can you look at me so calmly?" Lin Tian didn't answer. He was still recovering from his injuries in the Dwarven Kingdom, so he felt nothing. But he was interested. It would take about a month to regain his full strength. This period had made Gobu Yu, Leah, and the others quite frustrated. Even Alicenia often hinted at something, though she still resisted internally. But she couldn't reject the pleasure brought by Goblin's abilities. "I'm asking why you're here. If you don't answer, I don't have time to waste with you," Lin Tian said impatiently. He was now arrogant, betting that the Great Tomb's people wouldn't dare do anything to him. Rebecca couldn't get angry now. "Don't be like that. I underestimated you before. Now I'm here to acknowledge you. It's nothing serious, just a small matter." Seeing Rebecca actually trying to please him left the water demon and red-haired yeti dumbfounded. Things weren't developing as expected, were they? Was this really Lady Rebecca? Why was this proud, cold, and powerful succubus being so courteous to a goblin? "A small matter. Then go ahead and say it," Lin Tian said, still displeased. The water demon and red-haired yeti couldn't wait any longer. "Quick, Lady Rebecca, he wants to kill us. According to the Great Tomb's rules, he should be executed." Immediately, Rebecca said coldly, "You too, kneel before Lin Tian." "Yes, kneel." The water demon looked aggressive. But suddenly, he deflated. "Huh. Who's kneeling?" When he noticed Rebecca's cold gaze directed at them, his heart sank. "My lady." The water demon wanted to say something but was abruptly suppressed by a tremendous magical force. Along with the red-haired yeti, his legs immediately knelt on the ground. Crack. Their kneecaps shattered on the spot, cracking the stone floor. The two were in excruciating pain and utterly baffled. Lin Tian stood arrogantly in front. "Rebecca, one wants to roast me, and the other wants to eat my little brother. What do we do about that? It's simple. Roast the water demon over a fire, and let the red-haired yeti eat his little brother. Does that work?" Rebecca said understandingly. Lin Tian raised an eyebrow, surprised that she played this way. He had only said it casually. Since it was like this, he would follow through. Now, the water demon and red-haired yeti panicked. "My lady, this must be a mistake. Why are you doing this to us? Isn't it the goblin's fault? My lady, do you want to do it yourself, or should I make you do it?" Rebecca threatened without waiting for their response. Seeing them trembling in fear without reacting, she directly used charm magic to completely control them. After that, the red-haired yeti helped tie up the water demon and put him on the bonfire to roast. Rebecca used her succubus magic again, her eyes shooting a string of hearts, making eye contact with the dazed water demon. Immediately, the water demon reacted strongly. Watching this scene, Rebecca was satisfied. How about this? Is it enough? The other goblins watched with gritted teeth, finding it unbearable. Especially the female water demons, who were on the verge of tears. That's enough. Leave them to me next. I can't guarantee they'll survive, Lin Tian said. Disdainfully. But his words meant he intended to kill them. He had to eliminate them no matter what. They might bring monsters to cause trouble during the fight with the Empire. Rebecca didn't expect Lin Tian to be so ruthless and hesitated, but they've been in the Great Tomb for a long time and have some strength. Lin Tian's gaze remained cold. All right, I'll leave them to you. But the Bone King gave you the authority, so you must take responsibility. After Rebecca finished speaking, she turned and left, her eyes once again filled with disdain. After she left, the water demon and red-haired Yeti regained their senses. Seeing the scene, the red-haired Yeti vomited in disgust. Damn, what was I doing? Ah, it hurts. Let me down first. The water demon's skin lacked moisture, drying up like a 100-year-old man. The two barely recovered, only to find Rebecca had already left. The red-haired Yeti was confused and frightened. Why did my lady do this? The water demon was also terrified. Damn Goblin, what did you do? Why did my lady side with you? HMPH, you don't deserve to know. You just need to know that after I kill you, I can still live happily, using your clansmen as breeding machines daily, using your snowfield as a playground, and taking your snow spirits as my own. Lin Tian mocked coldly. He didn't kill them before to confirm the Great Tomb's attitude and to mentally destroy these two guys. I'll fight you to the death. The water demon roared, gritting his teeth in hatred. Helpless, desperate, and unwilling, he turned his anger into a reckless charge. Suddenly, a giant axe struck the water demon's forehead. He stopped moving completely. His brain matter slowly flowed down the crack. The red-haired Yeti hadn't reacted when he felt a stabbing pain in his chest. Looking down, he saw a goblin resembling a cockroach through a big hole. Gobu Kwang and Gobu Tian easily took care of them. Mainly because the water demon was seriously injured and weak, and the red-haired Yeti was even weaker here. In the snowfield, with infinite resurrection and the blizzard environment, without the heart of Apollo, he would be tough to deal with. That's enough. It's time to prepare our trump card. Gobu Tian, go to the Lionheart Empire to check the situation. Also, investigate the Holy Church. Prioritize safety. Lin Tian said with disinterest, looking at their corpses. His expression shifted from arrogance to seriousness. Because the battle that would determine their foothold on this continent was finally approaching. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 99. Boss, we need to escape quickly. TL. Sungman. Gobu Yu, have you selected the 1,000 goblins? Lin Tian walked to the eastern valley and spoke. Gobu Yu and the others were in charge of delivering and breeding. Because the number was too large, they were busy every day without rest. Upon hearing this, Gobu Yu looked around and said, they are ready. Their parents are of top quality, and they have all developed fully. They are now big variants. Alright then, bring them out. I need to explain some things. Lin Tian nodded. Immediately, 1,000 fierce and well-trained goblins were brought to the western area. Seeing their fierce and sharp eyes, Lin Tian began to speak. Do you know who I am? Due to the recent months of frantic production, many goblins hadn't even seen Lin Tian once. Boss. The goblins shouted in unison. They were exceptionally well trained. At this moment, Goblin Slayer walked over. Rest assured, they are all under my control. No need for any ideological work. I see. Lin Tian felt relieved. This way, there was no need for any unnecessary talk. He directly ordered, I will take you to a place later. Be honest on the way and don't say a word to anyone except me. Understood, boss. The goblins responded in unison. They were essentially a large batch of death soldiers. If trained well, their combat power would be off the charts. Lin Tian looked at everyone and said, Gobu Yu, continue to breed goblins frantically during this time. I will be away for a long time. If there's any trouble, use the cannibal eagles. If you encounter danger, escape first. Since it was uncertain if the church people would launch a sneak attack, it was better to give more instructions. Okay. Be careful too. Gobu Yu nodded obediently. Lin Tian, along with these goblins and Alice, set off for the northern snowfield. They needed to distribute magic tools and have Alice teach them combat techniques and methods, which would take a long time. By the way, if anyone from the Great Tomb comes, tell them I went to the Human Empire to scout. He added this last sentence for insurance. To be safe, Lin Tian's departure route avoided the tribes of intelligent beings to prevent them from reporting. If they encountered intelligent beings, they would kill them without hesitation. It took 7 days to reach the northern snowfield. The cold made these big variants shiver, so Lin Tian quickly took out the heart of Apollo. He chose a relatively hidden spot deep in the snowfield. Then he had the monsters look for a cave for better concealment. Soon, a long-haired snow mouse led them to a clearing. It burrowed into the snow. Lin Tian understood and signaled the other goblins to step aside, then increased the power of the heart of Apollo, melting and evaporating a large area of snow. Indeed, a large cave entrance appeared. He then had them start a bonfire to prevent the snow from covering it again. The heart of Apollo's range was only 10 meters, so many goblins had to take turns warming up. It was very laborious. After all the arrangements were made, Lin Tian summoned the snow spirits. Swish, swish, swish. The sound of ice crystal wings flapping echoed in the snow. 1, 2, 3, dozens of snow spirits appeared. Why are there so many goblins? The snow spirit leader exclaimed, though it felt slightly reassured upon seeing Lin Tian. Lin Tian frowned slightly. In this hundreds of miles of snowfield, are there only this many snow spirits? Dozens of snow spirits, producing 100 snow crystals a day, wouldn't be enough. In the later stages, it would take 10 snow crystals to upgrade one goblin. We can summon more, but it needs to be during a blizzard. Now it's just regular snowfall, the snow spirit said helplessly. Lin Tian's eyes lit up. You all go into the cave, Alice too. Don't get frostbite. Here, if you weren't careful, parts of your body like fingers, toes, ears, and nose could get frostbitten. Without realizing it, they could fall off. Some goblins had already lost their ears. Then, Lin Tian activated the blizzard domain skill obtained from the red-haired Yeti. It could change the weather environment. Sure enough, a heavy blizzard began to fall, making people marvel. In the blink of an eye, the cave was covered again, but it didn't affect those inside. Dear spirits, come quickly. This place is free and beautiful, always covered in holy white snow. In the blizzard, the snow spirits began calling for their companions. Their melodious voices echoed. Within a few hours, 1,000 snow spirits appeared. They fluttered like butterflies in the snow, happily dancing. Each snowflake was like a meal, bigger than half of themselves when held in their hands. Very cute. With over 1,000 snow spirits, Lin Tian felt it was enough. Although snow spirits could revive after death, their actual lifespan was only 3 months. Short-lived yet beautiful. 3 months was sufficient for Lin Tian. According to the system's prediction, the Empire's declaration of war was imminent. There were less than 2 months left. I will ensure your safety. Just give me the snow crystals you produce, Lin Tian said to the snow spirits. After receiving unanimous agreement, he dispelled the blizzard, clearing the surrounding area again. Now, he only needed to wait for the snow crystals. Without hesitation, he activated the life simulation system. He had no time to wait idly. In a flash, a month and a half passed. Lin Tian forcibly stopped the life simulation system, needing to leave himself some time to prepare. At least he had to run another life simulation before the battle. To predict the outcome of the fight. The goblins had consumed a large amount of snow crystals and almost all the magical creatures in the snowfield. The Great Tomb did not pay much attention to the snowfield, so there was no worry even if the magical creatures were completely consumed. Fortunately, the 1,000 goblins had all reached level 70. They had all stably evolved into leader variants. Many were similar to Gobu Kwang's enchanted goblin but without 4 arms, thus weaker. They had consumed more magic crystals than flesh. Then there were mostly berserk goblins and giant goblins. There were also 2 mutated ones. Their evolution path had no special experiences, so they seemed ordinary. The leader variants of other powerful goblin tribes in the wild were generally like this as well. But Lin Tian never relied on mutation. Goblins were still goblins. Their strength couldn't compare to those truly talented races. No matter how many goblin kings there were, they could be easily defeated by others. Therefore, Lin Tian focused on obtaining as many magic tools as possible. Alice, during this time, please be strict. Help them improve their combat skills, Lin Tian said. Time was pressing. Although there had been daily training before, their low level and weak intelligence likely made them forget most of it. Now that they were all leader variants, their intelligence was almost complete, making training much easier. He wouldn't evenly distribute the upgrade resources. After some time, he could still promote a few overlord variants. Alice responded, No need to be so polite, messenger. For the ultimate holy war, I am willing to give everything. Huh. Lin Tian felt she looked obedient when she said the last phrase. She kept staring at him. But he didn't think much about it. It was time to distribute the magic tools. Based on each goblin's overall ability, he allocated different magic tools, teaching them how to use them and in what situations. Only then could they achieve the strongest effect. This was how to create a batch of perfect killing machines. In about 10 days, everything was settled. Before returning to the Tian Kuang tribe, Lin Tian specially promoted an overlord-level mutant variant as the manager and named it Gobu. It looked robust and strong, about 2 meters tall. It wore a 10th tier defensive armor magic tool and held a world-class longsword, the Demon Sealing Sword. It could absorb all magic attacking it, even holy magic, and release it back. It was a sword demon goblin, with red skin that looked like it had been skinned, quite eerie. Lin Tian specifically asked Alice to teach it a few moves. It had strong talent in swordsmanship and special sword skill talent. Its overall strength was 5,500. Very impressive. Gobu, you all stay here honestly. Don't step out without my order, understand? Lin Tian said. There were already many magical creature corpses piled up as food around them. In the ice and snow, there was no fear of decay. Hearing this, Gobu nodded vigorously. Understood, boss. Everything we have is given by you. We will follow your orders. That's good. Lin Tian then followed Alice back to the Tian Kuang tribe. Time was pressing. The Lionheart Empire could declare war any day. Upon returning, Lin Tian was shocked by the terrifying number of goblins. In 2 months, how has the number doubled? Gobu Yu wiped the sweat off her brow and said, Rebecca said we needed more goblins, so we used magical creature resources without restraint. 80,000 small goblins, 30,000 big variants, 8,000 hero variants, and 100 leader variants. Just feeding them required consuming tens of thousands of magical creatures every day. Lin Tian clicked his tongue. No wonder we only saw a few high-tier magical creatures and no low-tier ones on the way back. It seems the Great Tomb has bet everything on this. By the way, where's Gobu Tian? Hasn't he returned yet? He looked around but didn't see that guy. Logically, upon Lin Tian's return, they should have been the first to come over and report what happened during his absence. Hearing this, Gobu Kuang shook his head. I haven't seen him for more than a month. I'm quite worried, boss. That guy shouldn't be. Lin Tian frowned. He didn't have time to look for him now, so he continued, Goblin Slayer, how are the weapons? Weapons were extremely important, especially for low-tier goblins. Their defense wasn't high, but there were many of them, so each needed an iron weapon. Each could stab once and kill those human soldiers. Goblin Slayer took out a small notebook and carefully calculated, we've prepared 50,000 short swords, 20,000 sets of iron armor, and 20,000 longswords. Other weapons total about 5,000. Other weapons included shields, spears, and long lances. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. Otherwise, everyone could have an iron weapon and a set of custom iron armor. Lin Tian nodded, not demanding too much. Well done. Boss, the situation has changed. We must leave quickly. We have no chance of winning. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 100. The Crown, or the Future. TL. Sungman. Everyone frowned and looked in unison towards the sound. Goblin Tian returned with some injuries, his face full of anxiety. Freya. Lin Tian only called her once, and she understood to go and treat Goblin Tian's injuries first. Then she asked, Don't worry, what do you mean by, we need to escape immediately? Goblin Tian recovered, but his breath and emotions were still very agitated. The Lionheart Empire has gathered 100,000 fully armored soldiers. Thunk. This sound sent a jolt through Lin Tian's heart. 100,000 fully armored soldiers. One must know that the combat strength of a fully armored soldier was considerable. Fully protected from head to toe, they were impervious to blades and spears. Although their movements were much slower compared to light armor, they could slowly wear down powerful opponents. But now, the Lionheart Empire had actually created 100,000 fully armored soldiers. Lin Tian suddenly realized why the system simulation had led to his certain death previously. As the Lionheart Empire emptying its treasury to fight this battle, even if they don't lose, with heavy casualties, they could easily be swallowed up by enemy nations. Upon hearing this, Alice's expression also became solemn. No one had expected that this lion, once enraged, could be so formidable. No wonder people said that a lion, even when hunting a rabbit, used all its strength. They had underestimated the seriousness of their opponent. Goblin Slayer shook her head. We should leave. When the time comes, I'll control an overlord variant of a super large tribe, and we still have a chance to make a comeback. However, Lin Tian's expression was firm. Leave. Where would we go with so many goblins? Looking across the entire continent, there wasn't a single inch of land where goblins could find refuge. They could only survive by hiding, unless they were goblin kings, but they wouldn't live long before being exterminated by humans or other races. Born seemingly only to be experience points for others. Even Alice believed there was no chance of winning. Messenger, we need to be patient, because if the church members join in, we could very likely face total annihilation. Yes, boss. The church has recalled about 5,000 people from around the world. 500 of them are holy guards in armor wielding great swords, and the other monks are also quite powerful. Goblin Tian explained further. He remembered being chased just moments ago by a large group of holy men. Leah's expression turned sad and dejected. So, are you saying we have no chance of winning, and all our efforts so far would be in vain? Everyone's mood became somewhat gloomy. They hadn't expected the opponent's combat power to reach such a crushing level. However, Lin Tian didn't care about the lives of these small goblins or big variants at all. They had to fight if there was any chance. If they didn't fight, there would never be a way to turn things around. By fighting, they could force the people from the Great Tomb to take action. Only then would there be a chance for mutual destruction, giving Lin Tian the opportunity to reap the benefits on the battlefield. Use all our strength. In these few days, create more ironware and iron armor. Get to it immediately. Lin Tian's voice rose a few notches, initiating action. The somber mood of the crowd was also affected. Everyone began to work. The mighty goblin army began to charge into the depths of the Great Tomb. They didn't spare a single iron ore. Now, the intelligence of small goblins was equivalent to that of big variants, fully understanding what they needed to do. Inside the Great Tomb, a water screen-like projection played scenes from the forest within the Dark Temple. It was the three eyeless witches, sharing their single eye to display the images. They were known as the Black Witches, once humans who had served the church but were cursed by the Bone King Veronica, becoming what they were now. That eye was known as the Eye of God, not only capable of predicting the future but also of seeing through everything. Indeed, Lin Tian, who was anxiously searching for iron ore in the forest, sensed someone spying on him. But he didn't pay much attention to it. Luckily he hadn't felt this earlier along the way. The snowfield side shouldn't have been discovered. What are they trying to do? Rebecca asked in astonishment, remembering previous events. My lord, that goblin was very rude to me before, but I endured it. Don't worry, they are just pawns, destined to be annihilated. Veronica said indifferently. She then looked at the Black Witches. It seems a great battle is imminent. Predict the final outcome. The Black Witches didn't dare delay, holding the eyeball, chanting ancient incantations. Suddenly, the eyeball began to bleed. The pain made them scream in agony. Lord Demon, this time among the participants is the Pope. We cannot predict the outcome, but I vaguely saw. One of the Black Witches stammered and stopped there. Rebecca, impatient, demanded, what did you see? The Black Witch hesitated for a long time before finally speaking. I saw the birth of a new god. The three Black Witches had exaggerated expressions, stretching out their hands as if in worship. Veronica's expression turned sinister. Nonsense, if there were a god, I would have been dead long ago. Get out. With a wave of black magic-like ripples, the three were blasted away, landing in the middle of the teleportation platform. It sent them back to the surface. A goblin able to play such a role, my lord, you are truly remarkable. Rebecca couldn't help but praise. Although she disliked and resented Lin Tian, she genuinely acknowledged his abilities. Veronica hadn't expected it either. It's time to settle things with the Lionheart Empire and the church. Let's get ready and release the thing. Oh, yes. Ellipsis. A few more days passed. The large furnaces Lin Tian had built didn't stop for a second. They worked overtime to forge iron armor and ironware. At this moment, in the Lionheart Empire, in the Imperial City, there was a lively commotion, with residents having put down their work, almost all joining the logistics efforts. Helping to pull iron, smelt iron, or turn in ironware and the like. Because of the nation's effort, they managed to create 100,000 fully armored soldiers in just a few months. And they had also captured 30,000 carnivorous horses in large quantities. Imagine a strong steed, ridden by a fully armored man wielding a giant axe charging at you. How could you dodge? Many people would probably wet their pants and surrender without a fight. Today, the furnace fires have finally died down, and the trumpet of victory will sound. Our Lionheart Empire will rise from chaos and death, never to be defeated. The Great Tomb threatens our families, our friends, our future. And there are also those heinous goblins. We lions must protect our lionesses at home and exterminate them completely, leaving none alive. In the plaza of the Imperial City, Charles II passionately swore. Below him, a vast sea of 100,000 soldiers responded in unison, leave none alive. These 100,000 soldiers were all well equipped, clad in silver armor. In the sunlight, they reflected beams of dazzling white light. Like the glow of victory. Duke Klein was dressed in new gold and silver armor, his eyes flashing with hatred. He wished he could kill Lin Tian right now. Like a fierce beast ready to charge out of its cage at any moment. Additionally, the Imperial Knight Commander Hamlet and the group of imposing Imperial Knights behind him were also restless. They longed to slay the monsters with their own hands. This Imperial Knight regiment was personally selected and trained by Charles II. Their strength was formidable, having carried out many cross-border missions. Seeing the high morale, Charles II smiled with satisfaction and then stepped back. Next, the old but imposing Pope slowly stepped forward. As his holy scepter struck the ground, the lingering sound in the air instantly cleared. The world seemed to have pressed the mute button, becoming eerily quiet. Then he finally spoke. Our enemy is not human, but monsters. Before, your fathers might have participated in such battles, creating decades of peace for you. But today, it is our turn to create a peaceful future for our descendants. Are you afraid of death? The old Pope's words were conveyed by the Cardinal, as his voice was already failing. The crowd didn't hesitate in their reply, not afraid. May the Lord bless us, the old Pope said, making the sign of the cross. Then he began to perform blessings for the entire army, his scepter emitting a brilliant light, luck blessing, high-level defense blessing, high-level strength blessing, high-level speed blessing, high-level. It wasn't just him. All the monks were also beginning to bless the entire army. Beams of holy light shot into the sky, transforming into starlight, falling among the soldiers. It was extremely awe-inspiring. The soldiers felt the changes in their bodies, becoming excited. Unfortunately, there were too many people, so each person received only a small boost, but it was better than nothing. Your Majesty, are you sure you want to take all 100,000 elite soldiers? What about your citizens? The old Pope turned, his golden eyes heavy as he looked at him. This could be considered the entire fighting force of the Lionheart Empire. The rest were old, weak, sick, and disabled soldiers without armor or decent weapons. If an enemy nation sent just 10 or 20,000 elite troops, they could sweep through easily. Charles II's expression was solemn as he gazed into the distance, seeming to come to terms with it. I won't let everyone die for the sake of a crown. To eradicate the Great Tomb, we must use all our strength. He had already informed the city's residents and soldiers beforehand. If an enemy invaded, they should surrender directly. Just join them. Of course, this message was also relayed back by enemy scouts. Upon hearing this, the enemy king had no intention of invading and strictly ordered that no baron or lord was to make any move against the Lionheart Empire during this period. In the face of monsters, humanity was united. Otherwise, they would have long been ruled by monsters. May the Lord be with you. Amen. A glimmer of astonishment and admiration flashed in the old Pope's eyes. After speaking, he stepped back. At this point, Charles II stood high, overlooking the 100,000 elite soldiers below. Swish. He suddenly drew his imperial sword. Soldiers, march forward. Trample that evil, dark land to pieces. Leave no inch behind. The mighty army turned around collectively. They began their advance. Their grand momentum seemed to condense into a mighty lion, ready to hunt its prey. The old Pope, accompanied by the Holy Mother, the cardinals, 100 holy guards, 10 temple guards, and over 4,000 monks and nuns, also started forward after finishing the last verse of the Bible. Liked it? Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 101. A Divine Game, or Malicious Amusement. TL. Sungman. God, are you toying with us? Watching the departing army, an old woman shed a bitter tear. Why were monsters so cruel? Was it the deliberate intention of the gods who created them? They clearly didn't have to be this way, yet they were. Doubt arose in her heart. But it was just that, doubt. Beside her, an old man sighed, looking even older. The monsters aren't wrong, nor are humans. Who is to blame them? We now fight monsters for our survival, because monsters are brutal and bloodthirsty by nature. The old man and the old woman couldn't understand. They seemed to grasp something but dared not think further. The power of the gods surpassed all. They could only hope their only son in the army would return alive. Ellipsis. In the Tian Quang tribe. The sounds of forging hammers clanged incessantly. Furnace fires roared with heat waves. The monsters have already eaten a vast number of breeding tools, significantly boosting everyone's strength. The previously overcrowded tribe now had some room to move. With the battle imminent, those breeding machines were of no further use. So, they were simply eaten. Except for the 1,000 humans kept alive. Being precious resources, they wouldn't be wasted. With sleepless and tireless forging, finally, all the low-level goblins were outfitted with simple armor and short swords. The big variants were fully armed. Plus the monsters left in. The Great Tomb can fight. Lin Tian said. To say he wasn't nervous was a lie. At this moment, Goblin scouts sent from the front line reported back, "Boss, the Empire's people have reached the Great Tomb, stopping 15 kilometers away." 15 kilometers away. Lin Tian pondered. It seemed there was a small plain at that distance. It looked like they intended to battle there. I see. Keep scouting and report back. Lin Tian gave the orders. He had Alice, who had experience leading troops, start assembling the soldiers, organizing the phalanx, and saying something to boost morale. We are messengers of the gods, chosen for a holy war. We must slaughter all demons from this world. Those humans. Hatred, coldness, and murderous intent began to burn in Alice's eyes. Unfortunately, while her morale was high, the goblins remained unmoved. Lin Tian helplessly said, "Ahem, let me do it." For goblins, boosting morale was simple. Do you want an empire where you can do whatever you want? Follow me to kill those guys in silver armor, and you'll have endless women and limitless food and drink. In summary, it was as simple as that. The goblins instantly became excited. I want to play with women. I'm tired of these monsters. Human wine is the best. I want to drink it. Blood and flesh. I want fresh and tender blood and flesh. Monsters don't taste good. Build an empire. Conquer all races. I want to play with every race. Kekeka. The crazy clamor echoed throughout the Tian Quang tribe. Alice shrugged, helpless at the sight. Goblin Slayer couldn't help but smile. Goblins truly understand goblins. Lin Tian chuckled. Don't lump me in with them. They're too shallow. I aim to control divine power. Over time, he deeply understood how much harm divine power brought to humans. A few words could brainwash a person. Even someone like Alice firmly believed in divine power. Only by becoming a god could he control everyone. Even those high and mighty would kneel before a god, making them kneel without daring to sit. Next, Alice began instructing on matters to note in war. Lin Tian activated the life simulation system. Such a great war held many uncertainties and extremely powerful roles. A slight mistake could lead to death. With the system's margin for error, he could better grasp victory. This was why he had forcibly stopped the life simulation before. Fortunately, he could simulate again before the war began. The life simulation system is starting. Current scenario. Imperial War. Today marks the 300th day since you transmigrated to this world. Nearly a year, and you finally face the biggest turning point. The tribe is strong, with 80,000 low-level goblins, 30,000 big variants, 8,000 hero variants, and 100 leader variants, the strongest goblin tribe in history. You lead this massive army, beginning the attack. You also activate the call skill, summoning all low-intelligence monsters from the Great Tomb. A total of 20,000, with fewer than 500 above the 5th tier, and only 10 above the 7th tier. However, upon seeing the 100,000 fully armored soldiers of the Lionheart Empire, including 30,000 heavy cavalry, pressure was felt. The war began amidst the hysterical shouts from both sides. The strength of the fully armored soldiers far exceeded expectations, with a casualty ratio of 5-1, the goblins dying far faster than anticipated. At this moment, Veronica appeared, using a super tier skill to summon the black goat spawn into the battle, which started to pull the casualty ratio back. But when the church members exerted their power, the situation reversed again. You were immediately targeted by the strong warriors of the Lionheart Empire and the church. Under the dense, powerful attacks, you had nowhere to escape. To save you, Gobu Kwang and the others all died in battle, and Alice was knocked unconscious and captured. You inevitably became a pawn for the Great Tomb. In the end, both sides suffered heavy losses. Summary. In a situation where the strong are numerous, exposing oneself is akin to falling into hell. Score: 40 points out of 100. Reward: life points x 40. This life simulation ended, with a time progression of 1 day. Abruptly, Lin Tian snapped back to reality, his face filled with fear. Did I die that easily? By now, he should have a combat level of at least 6,000, right? In the snowy plains, he also consumed many snow crystal stones, reaching level 90. However, thinking it through, he understood. The combat strength of the church members was uncertain. But from the performance of Bone King Veronica and the others, the old pope was likely close to a combat strength of 10,000. Still not an opponent Lin Tian could rival. Unless using Ruin Blood to greatly weaken him. But utilizing Ruin Blood was challenging and could only be done through ambush. It seems I can't expose myself first. I need Bone King to summon some monsters first. Lin Tian pondered. Every step now needed extreme caution. Otherwise, he would fall into hell. He first went to the legend formation to apply for a transmission message. Rebecca sensed it and opened the transmission channel to the Great Tomb for Lin Tian. Thus, he was transmitted. We meet again. What's the matter? Rebecca forced a smile. Lin Tian looked around, seeing only Bone King, the corpse pope, and the seductive succubus. He quickly got to the point. Things are serious. The Lionheart Empire and the church are camped 15 kilometers outside the Great Tomb. Oh, Bone King Veronica reacted. So, they intend to battle. How prepared are you? As you wished, the forces are almost ready, at the limit of what can be done. But compared to human fully armored soldiers, it's still not enough. You need to strike first. Lin Tian analyzed seriously. He had seen Veronica's attribute panel before. Veronica. LV 100. Race: Undead. Profession: Heretical Summoner. Title: Hand of Heresy. Undead King, Dark Summoner. Health: 3,800. Strength: 1,000. Defense: 1,200. Skills: Heretical Summoning, Monster Enhancement, Evil Canopy. Equipment: Death Cloak, Dark Staff. Overall: 9,999. From the attributes, she wasn't exceptionally strong. Lin Tian's base attributes weren't far behind hers. But her overall combat power was terrifying for one reason: her skills, profession, and equipment. Considering the system mentioned, she later summoned the Black Goat's Egg. That's the assumption. In the later stages, few relied solely on their attributes. Skills, professions, racial talents, and equipment were crucial. Attributes had limits unless one belonged to divine or certain special races. Upon hearing this, Veronica didn't speak first, but Rebecca questioned, "What are you saying? Our Lady doesn't strike so casually. Enough. This isn't a trivial matter. Just release the captured heretics." Veronica spoke, lightly stomping her staff. The 4 of them appeared above the teleportation array in the Tian Kuang tribe. The bustling goblin army somewhat shocked Rebecca, but Veronica remained unfazed. She simply said, "You've done well. If you survive this great battle, you may follow and serve me." "My lady." Rebecca pouted, obviously resistant and even jealous. She showed Lin Tian a good face purely because Veronica intended to use him. Deep down, she harbored a strong aversion to goblins. Knowing this, Lin Tian never gave her a good face, avoiding being manipulated. "Thank you for the praise." Lin Tian forced a smile, bowing his head, full of disdain. Thinking, what sort of trash? Serve you? Damn, I almost misheard. If you weren't just a skeleton, I'd definitely take you down if given the chance. In this world, no woman was worth Lin Tian's service. Only those he conquered. Thinking, even if you're a skeleton, I'll still make you submit. Otherwise, this show of superiority is pointless. Veronica gestured Rebecca to calm down and said, "You deserve it. Now, I'll expand the army's strength. Super tier magic heretical summoning." Immediately, 2 magic circles 10 meters wide unfolded in the forest beside the goblin army. And several differently colored magic circles overlapped in the sky, exuding extremely powerful magical energy. The wind howled, as if demons were whispering. Suddenly, a creepy, eerie laugh came from the magic circles, like impish chuckling. 2 pitch-black heretical creatures slowly emerged from the magic circles. Each over 10 meters tall, covered in writhing tentacles, lacking eyes, ears, or arms. Only 3 hoofed feet and a huge mouth. They even looked like bizarre oozing gold. Evil God's Black Goat Spawn. LV 100. Race: Heretical. Profession: None. Title: Ultimate Evil, Egg of the Black Goat Mother, Evil Devotee. Health. 5,000. Strength. 800. Defense. 1,000. Skills. None. Equipment. None. Overall. 6,000. Ellipsis. The black goat spawn has a very similar name as the dark young from Overlord in Japanese. The Overlord translators didn't translate it literally, and chose their own name for thematic purposes, I guess. Evil Gods Black. Chapter 102. The Unexpected Path. TL. Sungman. Upon seeing this guy's attributes, Lin Tian immediately understood why Veronica's combat power was so high. She had directly summoned 2 level 100 monsters. How could anyone fight against that? But what was this black goat spawn? Someone's child. It was so large and had such high attributes. Unfortunately, apart from its high health, it didn't have anything particularly special. Still, it was enough to be considered a super soldier. With these 2 monsters assisting, they wouldn't be crushed one-sidedly. The guys from the Lionheart Empire are yours to handle. I'll deal with the people from the church, Veronica said, then left with Rebecca and the corpse pope. Lin Tian couldn't help but sigh, as this the difference in strength. He then looked at his current attributes. Lin Tian. LV 90. Race. Goblin. Profession. None. Title. Blasphemer. Potential God. God's blessing. Health. 2,900. Strength. 889. Defense. 1030. Skills. Abnormal Fusion. Blood of Ruin. Blizzard Domain. Dream Manipulation. Ruinous Howl. No Blade Take. Sharpness. Equipment. Life Armor. Elemental Hand Crossbow. Spear of Zeus. Space Ring. Overall. 6,800. Although world-class items wouldn't increase attributes, they would enhance overall combat power. In other words, Lin Tian's high combat power was achieved through world-class and half-moon class magical items. Actually, having too many magical items wasn't useful. During a fight, one could only control 1 or 2 world-class magical items effectively. It was better to focus on mastering the use of one, to exert maximum power. Currently, Lin Tian's proficiency with the Spear of Zeus was too low. Otherwise, his combat power could be higher. He mainly used it as a javeliner for electro-fishing. Boss, someone from the Lionheart Empire is approaching us. At this moment, several goblin scouts hurried over to report. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes, nodded, and activated the call skill, summoning creatures from the entire enchanted forest. Unfortunately, due to the development of the goblin army, many monsters had been eaten. Only around 20,000 remained, with over 1,000 being 5th tier or higher, 300 6th tier, 10 7th tier, and 1 8th tier. Despite being low intelligence species, there were high intelligence high tier monsters among them. But those didn't need to join the fight, the outcome didn't affect them. Even if the Great Tomb lost, the church had agreed not to interfere as long as they didn't harm anyone. At this time, 3 Empire scouts had already reached the cliff above the Tian Kuang tribe. Seeing the vast number of goblins, various monsters, and those 2 terrifying aberrant creatures below, they were stunned. What the hell are those things? So many goblins. His Majesty underestimated them. Luckily, we have 100,000 fully armored soldiers, otherwise, we'd be in danger. The scouts were dumbfounded, especially when they saw the 2 black goats spawn, feeling a strong physical and psychological discomfort. That was the aberrant's innate ability, which would decrease one's sanity. Sanity, also known as mental strength, would deteriorate with prolonged observation. Commonly referred to as unspeakable entities. Just as the scouts were in shock, a group of goblins surrounded them. Gobu Tian grabbed one and flew down. Boss. Got them. Lin Tian's face turned cold, and he asked, "Do you have no fear of death?" The scout forced himself to remain calm, not showing any sign of fear, for he was there to declare war. If his spirit was weak, it would boost the enemy's morale. Clearing his throat, he raised his voice, "Monsters. I represent the entire Lionheart Empire to declare war on you. A battle to the death outside the Great Tomb." He handed over the declaration of war. Quite a bit of spirit. Good. I accept your challenge. Lin Tian stared at him with a strange expression. The scout inexplicably felt a surge of fear in his heart, staggering slightly but staying firm. He had already resolved not to return alive before coming. Splurt. Suddenly, bloody chunks fell from the sky. They were the blood and flesh of his companions. The eyes on the head were still wide open, with an expression of pain and ferocity, staring at him. Finally, the scout couldn't hold it together, stepped back in fear, but tripped over Gobu Shan. Falling on him. Seeing Gobu Shan's twisted, sinister face and the terrifyingly angled smile at the corner of his mouth. Gobu Shan, in the gentlest voice he could muster, said, "You touched me there. You must take responsibility, hee." The scout nearly fainted from fear. "What are you doing? Let me go, I beg you. I need to inform them of your response." Suddenly, he saw a familiar figure. Golden hair, a side profile that was still so holy and beautiful, clean and moving like a white lotus. A familiar sense of security surged into his heart. It was Alicenia. But then he realized, "Sword Saintess, why are you?" Hearing his voice, Alicenia walked over. Seeing him so frightened, she remained calm and just drew the ominous blade. "Sword Saintess, go back. His Majesty and everyone at the church." Before the scout could finish his sentence, his head was severed from his body. The ominous blade had a hint of blood on it, which it quickly absorbed. This was the power of the Darkspawn. When enough blood was stored, it would rebel. If one couldn't suppress it, the Darkspawn would take over the body. If suppressed, one would gain the power of the Darkspawn. Alicenia said calmly, "Be free. You, like me, are all deceived by demons." The duty of a soldier was also to protect the residents. The actions of those residents had made Alicenia hate them to the bone. "Are you ready?" Lin Tian came over and asked. Alicenia nodded, "We can march out anytime." Lin Tian nodded and looked at Gobu Yu. "You've worked hard during this time. Leave the fighting to us. Hide well here." "But boss, Gobu Yu hesitated. She was level 80, but because she was busy handling the tribe's affairs, she hadn't improved her strength. Like Lin Tian, she seemed unable to evolve into a high-tier variant, possibly due to some connection with the gods, making her relatively weak. Lin Tian raised his hand to interrupt her. "Let's go." He left the young wyvern Xiaohuan and Gobu Yu together, so they could escape if there was danger. Lin Tian slowly walked into the mighty goblin army. Alicenia, Gobu Kuang, Gobu Tian, Gobu Shan, Goblin Slayer, Leah, and the others followed. They were the leaders of this army, the pillars of combat strength. Walking at the front, leading their fierce monsters and goblins, they were imposing. With world-class magical items, Gobu Kuang and the others had their combat powers soaring to over 5,000, about to evolve into overlord variants, even reaching over 6,000. They were fully capable of fighting the Empire and the Church. As for Lin Tian, he used abnormal fusion to devour a big variant goblin, transforming into a big variant and following behind Alicenia and the others. He had a regular low-level goblin walk in front as his decoy. Using the leader's control ability, he could manipulate the decoy's every move and word perfectly, fooling the church bastards and avoiding concentrated attacks. Those guys hated him to the bone. If they focused their attacks on her, even Alicenia would die instantly. The army marched forward. The black goat spawn charged ahead like a killing machine, knocking down large trees easily. Lin Tian had to clear the trees. Otherwise, they would crush many low-level goblins. There was no other way. It was just a spawn with no consciousness. It needed to devour humans to maintain activity, or it would die within 3 days. Lin Tian realized he was wrong to let Veronica release these two creatures so soon. It was troubling. "Boss, what is that thing? It looks so disgusting, and it keeps knocking down trees," Gobu Kuang asked, first addressing the low-level goblin in front, then realizing and turning back. Lin Tian quickly explained, "I've told you all not to stare at those two. They're aberrant creatures, called black goat spawns, unable to understand words." Gobu Tian scratched his head. Aberrant. Black goat spawn. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something. "Since it's a spawn, can we mate with it to produce offspring?" Everyone froze, looking at Gobu Kuang as if he were a genius. An unexpected path indeed. His thought process left them speechless. Gobu Tian flew up and smacked his head. "Stop thinking nonsense. We're about to fight. Can you focus? You have thoughts about that thing. You're worse than Gobu Shan. You also went to see it," Gobu Kuang said, feeling wronged. Lin Tian thought for a moment, his eyes lighting up. Gobu Kuang's idea seemed quite reasonable. He wasn't a pure goblin after all. Why hadn't he thought that everything could mate? The black goat spawn could work too. The initial formation of a new life needed specific combinations, everyone knew that. So, the black goat spawn could create a new life. If a new life could really be created, wouldn't I be the husband of the flame dragon mother, legitimately? Lin Tian's eyes twitched. He decided to try. The flame dragon mother was one of the 7 great evil gods. Although a legend, with the black goat spawn here, it might be true. Lin Tian withdrew to the back of the goblin army, sneaking close to the black goat spawn. It was as big as a tall building. The aberrant's innate skill made it increasingly uncomfortable to look at, driving people insane. Lin Tian couldn't stand it either. He gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and dealt with the matter. Better than losing all sanity. Chapter 103. Are you going to have children for me? TL. Sungman. Let me take the path that no one has thought of. Lin Tian seemed to have made a firm decision. He bit his teeth and closed his eyes. Hey, where's the boss? Are you the boss? Gobu Kwang looked at the large group of big goblins behind him in confusion. They all looked the same, so he couldn't tell them apart. Gobu Tian cursed, can you stop being so annoying? The boss is already fed up with you. Oh, after the hustle and bustle ended, Lin Tian finally returned to Alice and the others. The others hadn't noticed, but Alice had seen Lin Tian leave earlier, so she couldn't help but ask, Messenger, what were you doing just now? Nothing. Seeing that things might be exposed, Lin Tian quickly shook his head in denial. Finally, a ray of sunlight appeared ahead. This indicated they had reached the edge of the great tomb. Is it coming? Both Lin Tian and Alice and the others felt a bit nervous. They stepped out of the great tomb, heading towards the main battlefield. Where's the scout? Why hasn't he returned yet? Could he have died again? Those damned goblins, this is a declaration of war. If you don't send them back, how will I know if you've accepted the challenge? Charles II, clad in bronze armor and having replaced his crown with a helmet, was cursing Lin Tian furiously in the military camp. Killing even a messenger was too despicable and shameless. The faces of the numerous commanding barons in the tent also looked grim. Klein couldn't help but comfort him. Your Majesty, don't get angry with a goblin. He does these things precisely because he's a goblin. I can't wait to kill him right now. Charles II's anger surged, as he was utterly fed up. At this moment, a frontline scout rushed in. Your Majesty, the goblins have arrived. HMPH, finally here. Alice, I'll bring you home. Charles II and his men rushed out of the tent, readying the soldiers. Preparing for battle. Boom. However, when they felt the unusual, intense trembling of the ground, their brows furrowed with a sense of gravity. Things seemed to be beyond their expectations. What is that? Why does it give such a strong sense of discomfort to the mind and body? My God, this scale, there must be 100,000 goblins, and so many monsters. How is that possible? In just half a year, how could a goblin tribe develop so fast? Everyone's faces contorted into exaggerated, twisted expressions. It was unbelievable to the extreme, making them doubt their sanity. Goblin tribes couldn't possibly unite and merge. These 100,000 goblins that appeared out of nowhere made them feel like they were dreaming. One must know that 100,000 goblins could consume tens of tons of food in a day. 100 tons of food could pile up into a small mountain. Where did so much food come from? Charles II gritted his teeth, calming himself. What's there to fear? We have 100,000 fully armored soldiers. Even if there were 200,000 goblins, we could still win. But Your Majesty, what about those two black, unsettling monsters? A marquis couldn't help but ask. Humans, when faced with the unknown, were either filled with curiosity or fear. At this moment, the cardinal walked over, flipping through a Bible. Those are heretical creatures, the spawn of the black goat, mentioned in the Bible. Tell all soldiers not to look at them directly. The black goat mother goddess periodically expels eggs from her body, but I didn't expect them to appear here. Hearing this explanation, everyone was still confused. Many had never heard of the black goat mother goddess. After all, it was an ancient matter. Charles II didn't pay much attention and instead asked, where is His Holiness the Pope? He is in the rear. I've come to help you lead the charge and was given this. The cardinal said, taking out a long sword. It was the Holy Sword of Alicenia. The Holy Sword was originally an 11th tier magical weapon, composed of two parts, the blade and the Holy Cross hilt. Due to the rarity of magical weapons, it had been split into two for use. Now, combined into one, it was named the Holy Cross Sword. It could now exert its true power. The blade was 30 centimeters longer, and the hilt was a large golden cross shape, allowing it to be held with both hands. Charles II's face darkened as he looked at the sword. Is that so? I believe it should be returned to its original owner. Don't worry, that's my goal. When the undead make their move, the old pope will also take action. The cardinal added, in a situation where both sides had top-tier strongmen of similar strength. Whoever struck first had a higher chance of failure. Magic and skills couldn't be used indiscriminately, as each use came with a significant cost. That's why the lower ranks were always sent to fight first. If they could force the enemy's trump card to act first, they would be one step closer to victory. Moreover, the old pope was already frail and weak. The initial consumption from striking first would be irreparable. One action would leave him weaker. This was why Veronica allowed Lin Tian to wantonly deplete the resources of the Great Tomb and provided him with protection. Lin Tian and his army had already reached the middle of the battlefield. They first surveyed the surrounding terrain. This place was called the Liang Plains. The area was relatively flat, with soft grass and various flowers growing on the ground. It was indeed very suitable for battle, with no fear of ambushes or traps. Boom! Swoosh! Ahead, the soldiers of the Lionheart Empire also began to move. Whether it was their marching or getting into formation, the thunderous sounds were uniform and synchronized. The silver armor reflected the dazzling white light under the sun. Dazzling to the extreme. A strong military presence exuded from them. Full of oppressive force. However, Lin Tian's side remained very calm. They waited for the enemy to approach. Charles II immediately locked his eyes on the low-level goblin standing at the forefront and asked, "Is it him? Is it really just a low-level goblin?" "That's right. I encountered that damned beast before." Klein gritted his teeth with a vicious snarl. He would never forget Lin Tian's words and would never forgive what he had done. His most revered role model and goddess had been defiled by a goblin. He swore silently, "Alice, I will bring you home. Even if it costs me my life." Charles II nodded, knowing it was enough to identify the most hateful guy. But suddenly, he saw that familiar face. Pure and flawless, with a pair of captivating azure eyes. However, the natural innocence and purity in those eyes had vanished, replaced only by darkness and coldness. Charles II disregarded everything else and shouted, "Alice! I've come to take you home. Come here, child." But the sword Saintess only glanced at him without responding. The coldness in her eyes seemed like an icy sword piercing Charles II's heart. "Why, child, have you forgotten your people? They need your protection." "Yes, Princess Alice, do you remember me? We used to train together every day, and you often pinned me to the ground." Klein also called out. They had discussed it beforehand, deciding to set aside Alice's massacre. And if she could change her mind, they wouldn't even hold her accountable. "Shut up." Suddenly, this sharp reprimand stunned Charles II and his men. Alice said angrily, "Don't mention them to me. I still have to kill more of those damn demons. I won't come back." Charles II. She had suffered for over 10 years, all to protect those people. In the end, those people wanted her dead. Return. Are you insane? On Lin Tian's side, not only could she communicate with God, but there was also no pressure like before. Which side was better was clear even to a fool. But ultimately, deep down, Alicenia was still evading. She knew some things could never be made right. So she might as well go all the way. "Alicenia, look at this. Have you forgotten the responsibility the church bestowed upon you?" At this moment, the cardinal took out the Holy Cross sword. At that moment, it was clear that Alice was somewhat shaken, her expression changing. Charles II and his men's eyes lit up with excitement. They felt there was a possibility of bringing her back. However, Alice only showed a disdainful expression. "Do you want to see my sword?" She then pulled out the ominous blade. The contained demonic energy surged into the sky. The entire sky visibly darkened for a moment before gradually recovering. The cardinal's expression turned grave as he stared at that sword, finding it extremely troublesome. "That's enough. You shameless people, is it fun to keep pestering?" At this moment, the low-level goblin under Lin Tian's control spoke in a lowered voice. Full of arrogance and disrespect. Immediately, Charles II's face turned into a hideous and terrifying expression, his words flying with spittle. It was as if a lion's roar could be heard, full of hatred. "Lin Tian. I've underestimated you, you damned beast. To think you created so many goblins in such a short time. Truly worthy of being a beast. What did you do to Princess Alice?" Ah, Klein was almost about to lose it. He had spent every moment recently improving his strength just to bring Alice back. He must personally kill Lin Tian. "You call yourself a king, yet you lack even a bit of decency." Lin Tian responded irritably, directly taking the moral high ground. He began to point and criticize him. This move was a killer. However, Charles II was shameless now. "HMPH, you think you can lecture me about morals and decency? Don't you know what you've done? Killing my people, kidnapping my people, committing all sorts of evil. I'm here today to wipe out you pests. That's too much. What do you mean by all sorts of evil? Did we do anything wrong?" As he spoke, He turned to ask the goblins. They all answered in unison that they hadn't. Lin Tian continued, I am a goblin. God gave me the ability to grow stronger by consuming flesh and blood. Should I starve myself? Will you feed me? If I don't capture your people, how will I mate? God decreed that my race wouldn't have females. Will you have children for me? These words immediately caused a moment of silence. Charles II and his men wanted to say something, but the words seemed stuck in their throats. Lin Tian added, by stopping us, are you defying God's will? Such audacity. Damn. The humans staggered, nearly losing their balance. They had no idea how to refute. Indeed, the God who created goblins made them eat flesh and blood and mate with other species' females. In a sense, stopping the goblins was defying God's will. Even the cardinal was speechless, looking a bit flustered. That's sophistry. Since there's nothing more to say, let's fight. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 104. Do it, kill Lin Tian. TL. Sungman. Hey, I know you're in a hurry, but don't rush just yet. I'm not the type who enjoys fighting and killing. It would be best if you could surrender. Lin Tian spoke in a sarcastic tone. In an instant, even the cardinal couldn't hold back any longer and cursed, pointing at Lin Tian's nose, beast. Stop slandering us. Does our church seem like a bunch of bloodthirsty fighters to you? But you were the ones who wanted to start the war. Lin Tian replied innocently. The cardinal's expression twisted, his lips twitching, Yet, he didn't know how to retort for a moment. Charles II stopped him. Bishop, stop arguing with him. Soldiers. For justice, annihilate these monsters. Reclaim our Saintess. Ha! A deafening shout erupted. It echoed through everyone's hearts like the chimes of a soul bell. The battle erupted instantly. The goblins showed no signs of fear, opening their mouths full of sharp teeth and saliva, roaring as they charged. Lin Tian first commanded the larger monsters to charge at the forefront. They mustn't allow their shieldmen to form a formation, or they would be pushed back relentlessly. Oh my god, what are these things? The shieldmen, seeing the massive beasts charging at them, felt a sense of dread, like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. They didn't dare to lift their heads. But they didn't retreat either, burying their heads behind their shields and gritting their teeth, using all their strength to resist. Yet, they couldn't withstand the impact of the 4 to 5 meter tall monsters. The front lines of the Imperial troops were immediately broken. Lin Tian quickly ordered, charge in. With the formation broken, it was the best time to strike directly. A large number of goblins infiltrated the ranks of the Imperial soldiers, engaging in close combat. However, even with simple iron armor, they were no match for the fully armored soldiers. On average, it took 5 small goblins to take down one fully armored soldier. For the larger variants, it took 2. But the final outcome was still uncertain. Lancers, Blade Riders, take down those larger beasts first. Shieldmen, regroup. Charles II shouted, commanding with unwavering composure. The neighs of carnivorous horses echoed. Heavy cavalry from both sides began charging into the central battlefield, their hoofbeats striking fear. Cavalry against infantry was a dimension reduction strike. Especially heavy cavalry. Their path was littered with goblin corpses. There was no way to fight back. Even if you wanted to attack, your reach wasn't as far as the lancers, and the carnivorous horses were also armored. There was no way to attack. Several blade riders wielded long knives, beginning to dismember a giant tusked boar. After a flurry of attacks, the 5th-tier monster was soon hacked to death, its body covered in gruesome wounds. A horrifying sight. Having dealt with one, the cavalry moved to the next target. Charles II smiled slightly, boasting, now you'll see the power of the Empire's iron. Crush their skulls to pieces. During the Yuan dynasty, the Mongolian cavalry, known as the Scourge of God, had terrified half of Europe. This was the strength of cavalry. Lin Tian and his group stayed behind, watching the scene from afar, their expressions heavy. No wonder they lost in the life simulation before, the cavalry were too powerful. They would definitely have to develop this unit in the future. But this time, he wouldn't be afraid. Swish, swish, swish. Suddenly, dark tentacles extended into the battlefield, wrapping around the carnivorous horses and riders together. They were shoved into a giant mouth, where crunching and grinding sounds were heard, sparks flying. The black goat spawns had joined the battle. To the cavalry and the entire Imperial army, they were a nightmare. With over 10 tentacles, many were lifted into the air, witnessing their comrades being chewed up close by, their flesh and blood being crushed, scaring them to the point of wetting themselves. Captain. No, Someone save us. A soldier screamed. He watched helplessly as his most respected captain was swallowed by the black goat spawn. The head was bitten by giant, human-like teeth. With a forceful bite, blood splattered onto the soldier. Even the armor was swallowed. Suddenly, streaks of holy light sword energy shot forth. The cardinal rescued the soldier. I'll handle these two monsters. Summoning heretical creatures, it must be its doing, right? He wielded the holy cross sword, continuously slashing out holy light sword energy. In an instant, several wounds appeared on the black goat spawn. However, after devouring a few soldiers, it began to heal. But if this continued, it would be killed by the cardinal sooner or later. Alice, you know what I want to say. Lin Tian's voice sounded solemn. Alice slowly drew the ominous blade, her expression cold. I understand. Her azure eyes were filled with hatred for the cardinal. The cardinal, who was in the midst of a fierce battle with the black goat spawn, suddenly felt a chill down his spine. He quickly turned around to see Alice slowly approaching him through the fighting crowd. The soldiers who saw Alice didn't attack. They kept trying to persuade her. Unfortunately, she cut down a large swath with a single sword strike. Alice, can you really turn back? Seeing her current state, the cardinal felt extreme disappointment. This is all my sin. Let me put an end to it. Now wielding the holy cross sword, his combat power had reached nearly 7,000. Meanwhile, Alice, equipped with dual-fused world-class magical artifacts and 10th tier armor, had her combat power soaring to a full 7,000. This was why Rebecca had felt her life threatened upon seeing Alice before. Ultimate magic. Angel's redemption. After chanting, the holy light on the long sword burst forth, and the cardinal glowed like a dazzling golden ball of light. One could see the golden lines spreading from the long sword to half of his body. The left side of his body also sprouted half a light wing. A red cross tattoo on his forehead radiated intense light. His eyes subtly glowed gold. He looked like a power angel, exuding a majestic and sacred aura. Angels were divided into power angels, thrones, cherubim, seraphim, archangels, and so on. Among them, power angels were of the warrior type. Alice's face remained cold, unfazed by the howling holy light that blew her golden hair around. She simply asked, "Do you regret it?" "I have repented countless times. Today is the day of redemption. Come, sword Saintess." The cardinal answered resolutely. But Alice stared intensely into his eyes, making him somewhat guilty. "But I smell killing intent on you. Do you want to kill me?" She wasn't literally smelling it. It was the whispers of the dark void in her ear, saying it smelled the intent to kill her. The cardinal's guilt was apparent. "You are already incurable. I will redeem you now." With that, he disappeared in an instant. He was already above Alice, the holy cross sword poised to strike down. Indeed, seeing Alice calmly kill soldiers earlier, he had decided he couldn't let her live. So he started with his ultimate move, all power unleashed. Alice swiftly dodged, sending two fierce steel winds towards him. The cardinal's holy light shield blocked them, but then his expression changed. What? The shield cracked after two hits and eventually shattered. As he was still in shock, Alice had already gathered the exclusive skill of her world-class magical artifact, Dragon of the Damned. The soul of the dragon within the sword had fully submitted to Alice. She could control it at will. She then rushed to the cardinal and engaged in close combat. Every strike came with the terrifying roar of a dragon. The cardinal blocked, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. What is this power? It feels like each hit is a dragon pouncing on me. One misstep, and he would die in the dragon's maw. The intense pressure from the dragon's might made it hard for him to breathe. After all, the dragon was once on par with the ancient dragon kings, its power over 10,000. Yet, the cardinal could still hold his ground. Ellipsis. At this moment, Charles II of the Lionheart Empire, Klein, and the Imperial Knights. All their eyes were locked on Lin Tian, each wielding a 10th tier magical artifact. Holy War Gauntlets and Imperial Battle Flag. Klein, who obtained his magical artifact from the church after trials, wielded it with immense killing power and anti-monster properties. After half a year of relentless practice, he could destroy a 5th tier monster with a single punch. The Imperial Battle Flag, used by the Imperial Knights, was an area amplification artifact. Every wave granted nearby allies boosts in speed, strength, and defense. It also provided immunity to most slowing effects, poison, and more. An essential artifact for opening engagements. Charles II's Lionheart Sword, an 11th tier magical artifact, was forged from the faith of countless citizens. It lacked anti-monster effects but possessed tremendous destructive power. It also had the exclusive skill, Unyielding Lion's Roar, which had an extended range, stunning enemies for a long time. Your Majesty, shall we strike? Make sure to kill him in one blow. Klein said with hatred-filled eyes. Today, his strength had reached 5,000, feeling even stronger than the former Alicenia. Thus, he was extremely arrogant. The Imperial Knight Captain Hamlet also said, once your Majesty strikes, we'll rush in and push the others away, then we can kill him. Seeing their determination, Charles II gritted his teeth. Prepare, let's move. He took a deep breath and roared loudly toward the front, several meters away. Roar. The deafening lion's roar formed a funnel, shaking everything in its path. Everyone in the triangular area was stunned by the sound waves. Attack. At Hamlet's command, he swung the Imperial battle flag. Colorful halos surrounded them. 5 Imperial Knights charged through, scattering all the goblins in their path with their mounts. Lin Tian was hiding behind the army. Even Gobu Kwang was knocked unconscious by the roar. The small goblin disguised as Lin Tian was bleeding from all 7 orifices. Charles II and his men, filled with excitement, charged forward. We've got him. Die, you beast. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 105. Despair. Good. Despair. TL. Sungman. Their frenzied shouts were hysterical. Seeing this, many goblins who were not stunned rushed over, trying to protect Lin Tian. However, they were knocked away by the Imperial Knights. In an instant, Klein's punch exploded with a strong holy light. It directly smashed into Lin Tian's head. On the spot, his brain burst open. It exploded everywhere like a balloon. Charles II also fiercely stabbed the Lion King's sword into Lin Tian's heart, and twisted it. The long spears of Hamlet's men also stabbed wildly. They cruelly dismembered the small goblin into pieces. In the distance, the real Lin Tian, who had anticipated this terrifying attack, gasped in shock. Even his anus was trembling. Tisk tisk tisk, just how much do they hate me? He couldn't imagine if it were really him, he would probably be half dead if not completely dead. Finally, we got you. Klein laughed madly, trembling with excitement. He reached down, picked up a piece of flesh, and threw it towards the goblin army. Your leader is dead. Surrender now. Charles II exhaled deeply, as if a heavy stone had finally been lifted. He was extremely relieved. At this moment, Gobu Kwang and the others also recovered. Boss. You died so horribly. Seeing the blurry mess of green flesh, Gobu Kwang immediately knelt on the ground and cried loudly. Gobu Tian and Gobu Shan were stunned for a moment, not expecting him to get into character so quickly. They then began to mourn as well. My dear boss, didn't you say you would travel the world with me? How could you leave like this? He was a hero. It's a pity he couldn't fulfill his wish to travel the world. I will carry on your wish, boss. Seeing their exaggerated performance, Charles II and the others didn't notice anything wrong, instead becoming more convinced they had finally killed Lin Tian. They didn't expect it to be so unexpectedly easy. Suddenly, a powerful magic beam shot towards him, blasting him away with terrifying force. Gobu Kwang, holding various magical items, started attacking. Gobu Tian seized the opportunity to capture an Imperial Knight and killed him on the spot. As an assassin, if he couldn't kill with one strike, it would be a waste. These goblins are strong too, be careful. Charles II got up from a distance, warning cautiously. At this moment, a cold voice rang out, I just don't get it. Do you hate me this much? Alice chose to be with me willingly, there was nothing I could do. Gulp. Hearing this, Charles II and the others' hearts skipped a beat. Lin Tian shed his disguise and returned to his original form, walking slowly towards them. These guys had already used their big moves, now was the perfect time to kill them. You. Klein looked in disbelief at the pile of flesh, then at Lin Tian. He couldn't believe he wasn't dead. The problem was, all goblins looked the same. With facial blindness, it was impossible to recognize them. Charles II's face darkened, so it's you. No wonder you've been causing chaos in my Lionheart Empire. Today, we will end this. He didn't expect to fall into the trap so quickly. He truly realized the terror of this goblin. Your Majesty, let me duel him. I must vent the resentment in my heart. Duke Klein said with hatred. These 6 months of effort were for today. He then challenged, do you dare to duel me? Lin Tian rolled his eyes and shrugged, do I need help to kill you? You guys, don't interfere. He raised his hand. The surrounding goblins stopped. Good. I'm here to avenge myself. Alice, and the entire empire. Can you withstand this rage? With that said, Klein's holy war gauntlets burst into intense light, dazzling like flowing fire. For monsters, that holy light was scorching flame. Touching it meant death. Lin Tian stood still, slowly pulling out a sharp shortsword. He was fearless, even showing a wicked smile. Die. In an instant, a powerful energy erupted behind Klein. He flew towards Lin Tian, fists crashing down heavily. Charles II and his men frowned, warning, be careful, that guy is too calm. Gobu Kwang and the others watched as if it were a show. They were not worried about Lin Tian at all. However, the scene before them was unexpected for everyone. Lin Tian raised the shortsword to block, and the blade shattered into pieces. The whole person was blasted into pieces by the terrifying fist. Mucus splattered everywhere. Damn, boss. At that moment, Gobu Kwang and the others panicked, truly panicked. They never expected their boss to actually die. Charles II and his group were also at a loss. Huh. Did we really kill him? You did, but not completely. Suddenly, the nearby goblin slowly spoke. He directly picked up the spear of Zeus and thrust it fiercely at Klein. It pierced through his kidney on the spot. A lion uses all its strength to catch a rabbit. Naturally, he wouldn't underestimate these guys. Sneak attack, plus full force, suited his style perfectly. Klein's face contorted in pain. How? You despicable scoundrel. He was about to launch another attack. Z's. In the next second, powerful lightning electrocuted him into a pretzel. Lin Tian kicked him away disdainfully and pulled out the spear of Zeus. I endured your rage, and then. Unfortunately, Klein was already dead from the electrocution. His eyes were wide open, full of resentment. After half a year of hellish training, he longed to defeat Lin Tian fair and square to vent his resentment. But his ideal was too naive. Did he think this world was like a hero's anime? No one could predict how the plot would change. Anyone could die in the next second. Bastard. At this time, Charles II gritted his teeth, his whole body shaking with anger. Klein was the kingdom's greatest young talent, second only to Alice. And now he was killed in such a deceitful way. Unable to hold back any longer, he yelled, I'll kill you. Your Majesty, wait. This might not be his true form. Hamlet quickly held him back. Charles II struggled a few more times before finally calming down. He nearly lost his mind in rage. The empire he worked so hard to build over half his life. Being toyed with by a goblin felt worse than death. Watching a capable general being killed by underhanded means, yet being unable to do anything about it. Even a child would cry out of frustration. At this moment, a small goblin circled behind them. Hamlet was the first to notice something wrong and charged over on his warhorse, killing the goblin on the spot. No, this doesn't seem to be his true form either. As he was still suspicious. A deafening roar erupted from behind. Roar. Lin Tian's ruinous howl stunned the members of the Knight Regiment. He immediately started attacking. Gobu Tian quickly climbed up the horse's leg and used his void dagger to kill someone instantly. Their combat power was around 4,000. Without the boost from the Imperial battle flag, they could be easily dealt with. Gobu Kwang used magic chains to control two people, lifting them and throwing them into the goblin crowd. In the blink of an eye, they were devoured completely. The last knight bled from all 7 orifices, stunned in place. Charles II was also affected but not stunned. He quickly retreated. Alan, Emile, Dos. Damn it. Hamlet almost screamed, his face twisted with rage as he charged over, his eyes nearly popping out. Veins bulged on his neck and forehead. He hurriedly rushed towards the last knight, Herbert. Herbert, wake up. Hamlet rode his horse, waving the battle flag, hoping to snap him out of the daze. Sure enough, Herbert began to regain consciousness, but Gobu Kwang's giant axe was already before him. He quickly turned to flee. But it was too late. From a distance, on the massive magic beast, Elephant Mountain, Leah pulled back her bow. She released an arrow. It hit Herbert's back precisely, piercing his heart. Seeing Herbert collapse, Hamlet relaxed a bit. Let's retreat quickly, these guys are too despicable. But Herbert didn't respond. He just stared blankly at him. Herbert, why are you just standing there? We need to cover the retreat of His Majesty. We can't worry about Alan and the others now. Hamlet shouted urgently, both anxious and confused. Herbert made a choking sound, hot blood gushing from his throat. Barely audible, he said, Knight Commander, I'm sorry, I can only leave the task of protecting the kingdom to you. Then he fell off his horse. The invincible knight order had been nearly wiped out. Only Hamlet was left. He stood frozen in place, the horrific scene before him turning into endless rage surging to his brain. It felt like his blood vessels were about to burst. Trembling, he gritted his teeth, making a grinding sound. What have you done? His scream tore his throat, coughing up some bloody saliva. Lin Tian looked innocent. Weren't you the one who went off to kill goblins? Who can you blame? As the most important support, he went off alone to fight monsters. Naturally, that would doom his teammates. However, that sneaky low-level goblin was also controlled by Lin Tian. The purpose was to lure him away. Only then did they have the chance to kill those knights. Otherwise, if they were allowed to fight freely, they would be hard to deal with. Even if Gobu Kwang and the others teamed up, they might barely hold their own. Hamlet's mind buzzed. Did I kill my own team? I'll fight you to the death. Damn you all. This time, Charles II held him back with all his strength. Wait, have you forgotten? Don't be impulsive, Knight Commander. Unfortunately, he had lost his mind. The pain of indirectly causing the death of comrades who had fought with him for years was worse than death. He had no intention of continuing to live. He swung his battle flag and stabbed it into Gobu Kwang's shoulder, charging forward on his warhorse, pushing him back dozens of meters. A large group of goblins pounced on him. Swish. They were all torn apart by the spearhead on the battle flag. Speed, strength, and defense were amplified, ignoring control effects. He slaughtered the goblins as if they were nothing. This was why Lin Tian wanted to sneak attack the knights first. Ignoring control effects was tough to deal with. He moved freely among the goblins, killing at will. But it was time to end this. He aimed the spear of Zeus and threw it forcefully. Thud. It pierced through his body. A large bloody hole appeared in his right chest cavity. Lin Tian was stunned. Damn, ignoring control effects can do that. So smooth. But then again, this guy had nearly 6,000 overall combat power. In the blink of an eye, he killed hundreds or even thousands of low-level goblins. Gobu Kwang got up, forcibly restraining him, while Gobu Tian sneaked up and created another large hole in his heart. Super tier martial skill Undying Will. Your Majesty, I can't stay with you anymore. I'm sorry. Hamlet shouted, his eyes turning blood red, with no pupils or whites visible, his whole body burning with intense fighting spirit. His entire figure became almost a blur. Blood continuously sprayed from his body, but he seemed unaffected. He kept fighting madly. A large number of goblins were chopped into pieces. Or rather, he was already dead, just a fighting corpse. Yet he continued to roar, his aura overwhelming. In this state, the goblins were terrified, their legs shaking, retreating and fleeing. Even Lin Tian couldn't help but marvel, damn, that's freakishly powerful. Everyone fall back. They just needed to wait for his super tier martial skill to expire. There was no need for unnecessary sacrifices. Boss, you're amazing, dealing with those tough guys so quickly. Gobu Kwang and the others praised in admiration. Suddenly, a hysterical voice rang out nearby. Hamlet, I acknowledge your knightly spirit. But why did it have to be like this? Charles II watched from a distance, shouting in agony. The once invincible Lionheart King felt powerless, desperate, even terrified. In just a brief encounter, they were toyed with by a goblin. His top generals were all dead. Klein, the Imperial Knight Order, had all achieved great feats. Yet they died so miserably, so unceremoniously. Who wouldn't be devastated? TL. Over 2K words, so one chapter today. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 106. The Power of the Darkspawn. TL. Sungman. Steel Gale. Terrifying. Tangible sword energy slashed towards the cardinal. He was forced to retreat continuously, unable to counterattack. The deflected sword energy howled chaotically. In an instant, dozens of fully armored Imperial soldiers were shredded into pieces. A mist of blood filled the sky. Both sides of the fight instinctively paused, frantically retreating to a distance, not daring to approach. The cardinal knew in his heart that with the sword, he was no match for Alicenia. At this moment, his body was already covered in wounds. However, Alice's attacks only grew fiercer. Cold sweat covered the cardinal's forehead. What a pity. If you could continue serving as the sword Saintess, you might even surpass the Pope in the future. So young, yet possessing such skill. One couldn't help but feel both regret and awe. But now, no matter what, he had to take her down. Behind him, 5 tall temple guards approached slowly. They were stronger than the Holy Cross guards, akin to squad leaders. Each had a power level of 6,000. There were only 10 of them in the entire church. Clad in rusty, giant heavy armor, wielding cross-shaped broadswords, they exuded a stench of blood and bronze. They differed from monks and clerics. They bore no hint of sanctity, only deep, overwhelming killing intent. In a way, they were simply warriors. Similar to the warrior monks of Shaolin Temple. When words and reasoning failed, the Buddha would use a staff to enlighten you. The temple guards were no different. Behind them lay a trail of goblin corpses. Low-level goblins were crushed into pulp with a single stomp. Your Excellency, the Holy Mother sent us to assist you, the lead temple guard, Furfus, said. His pupils, under the faceplate, glowed with a cold golden light. The cardinal finally caught his breath, warning, be careful, his sword contains the soul of a dragon and something else I can't identify. Furfus nodded, raised his longsword, and attacked first. A leaping slash, dodged by Alice. Boom. The ground split into a 10-meter-long fissure. As Alice dodged, temple guards attacked from her left, right, and behind. They leapt high, swinging their swords down. Steel gale slashed out, stirring up a cloud of dust. When the dust settled, the temple guards had vanished. Furfus coldly asked, Your Excellency, do we really have to keep her here forever? Although they hadn't interacted much with the sword Saintess, they couldn't bear to see her fall like this. Do you see those soldiers, corpses around? She did that. Do you really think she can be redeemed? You think I'm not heartbroken? The cardinal shouted, emotionally agitated. He regretted it too, but now he was on the same path as Alice, a path of no return. Some mistakes could never be undone. Ultimate magic holy force field. Instantly, 3 golden magic circles condensed in the sky, forming a hemispherical shield, trapping the 7 of them inside. The range was small, only about 10 meters, leaving almost no room to dodge. The cardinal held his holy sword, his expression uncharacteristically calm. Alice, I'm sorry, let me end this sin today. Furfus and the others immediately attacked. In the confined space, Alice had nowhere to dodge, forced to take each attack head-on. She had to circle around, as being pinned against the force field would leave her helpless against multiple attackers. There was no way to block them all. Inside the force field, the clash of metal rang out. Sparks flew between blades. Your Excellency, don't harm Alice. At this moment, Charles II noticed the situation and hurriedly shouted. 5 temple guards had already come to support against Lin Tian and his group. A king must be protected first, or the army would collapse. The cardinal, hearing this, circled behind Alice, who was desperately fending off the attackers in front. He then delivered a heavy slash. Even 10th tier armor cracked under the blow, splitting open. It cut through her white skin, blood oozing out. Charles II panicked, wildly striking the force field with his royal sword, only to be repelled by his own strength. Stop it. Alice isn't evil. She can still be saved. His mission, besides destroying the goblins and the Great Tomb, most importantly, was to save and retrieve Alice. However, now the church wanted her dead. The cardinal said helplessly, Your Majesty. She can no longer turn back, just like me. We can only see this mistake through to the end. I'm sorry. Men, break this force field. Charles II, enraged, immediately ordered all nearby soldiers to change their target. But this holy force field, an ultimate level control magic, couldn't even be broken by its caster. On the contrary, the more attack power it absorbed, the stronger it became. Unless one could generate enough force to blow the field apart. But that was highly unlikely. Charles II could only watch helplessly again as Alice was forced to endure one brutal sword strike after another, her body drenched in blood. Her armor was shattered beyond recognition. Alice panted heavily. Within this short time, she had blocked thousands of heavy sword blows. Her hands were bruised and swollen beyond recognition. Her arms ached to the point where she could barely lift them. Any slight mistake, and she would die here. Lord God, is my mission to end here? Alice thought unwillingly. She had yet to exterminate those demons in the royal city. Suddenly, that sinister, raspy voice sounded again. Little girl, you seem very tired. Why don't you rest for a bit and leave the rest to me? Shut up. I won't be tempted by you. Alice resisted. Seeing her resolve still so firm, the Darkspawn's eyes gleamed. You misunderstand. I mean to lend you power. After all, if you die, I will fall into the hands of the church and never again savor the pleasure of blood. Hearing this, Alice hesitated slightly because if she didn't find a way, she would die here. Resolutely, she said, Then, do it. Been waiting for you to say that. At this moment, the cardinal and his men saw Alice half kneeling, covered in blood, and felt slightly relieved. Alice, Farewell. Furfus closed his eyes, raising his heavy sword high, ready to deliver a beheading blow. To minimize her suffering, he would send off this highly respected sword Saintess. Charles II screamed in agony, "Stop! Alice, my child!" Whoosh. However, as the heavy sword slashed down, bang! To everyone's surprise, the heavy sword was deflected by a terrifying force, piercing through the force field. Half embedded in the protective shield above. The cardinal's expression changed drastically. That aura was increasing rapidly. He quickly ordered, "Stay away from her." The sword Saintess's broken armor began to melt, forming a new set of black armor that covered her body. Moreover, it seemed alive, with vein-like patterns running across it. Her sapphire blue eyes turned bloodshot crimson. From her right hand, holding the sword, blackened cracks spread up to her neck and half of her face. She looked as terrifying as a demon. A crimson aura of blood surrounded her, reeking of blood and fear. This is Darkspawn. The cardinal's heart finally confirmed it, and he hurriedly commanded, "We must kill her immediately. Don't let her escape this force field." Alice smirked disdainfully. In the next second, she frantically attacked the force field. With hundreds of soldiers attacking from outside, the force field soon shattered completely. Facing so many Imperial soldiers, Alice stretched out her hand and summoned a crimson, black hole-like object. The blood of those Imperial soldiers was drawn out. Completely drained. This is bad. Ultimate magic. Cough. The cardinal hurriedly tried to cast another spell but coughed up a mouthful of blood, exhausted from casting 2 ultimate spells in succession. However, he gritted his teeth and continued, "Ultimate magic, holy retribution." In the sky, clouds parted. A massive golden sword slowly emerged, friction igniting it with fierce flames. It plummeted rapidly towards Alice. The giant sword had the oppressive presence of a mountain. Imperial soldiers and goblins alike fled in a panic. "Your Excellency, you." Furfus was shocked that he would use such a move. It was tantamount to annihilating everything within a 300-meter radius, sparing only those strong enough to survive. The cardinal understood the gravity of the situation. "It may be too late. Hold her down. We can't let her fully transform into the Darkspawn. If she releases the Darkspawn, the whole world will be doomed." Everyone restrained their attacks as much as possible, otherwise, no one around would survive. They had to be cautious of their own people. But now, the friendly casualties seemed insignificant compared to the threat. Alice continued absorbing blood frantically, her black and red blood armor becoming more lifelike. The veins on the armor pulsed like muscles. It looked like an exoskeleton. This was the Darkspawn's body, its flesh. It wanted to rebuild its body, escaping Alice's control, and be reborn through this grand war. "Enough. If you keep this up, I'll kill you first, understand?" Alice's voice was cold, issuing a threat. The Darkspawn replied in a sly tone, "Just a bit more, or we won't be able to win." "Almost there. I said, enough," Alice shouted. Her aura surged. A terrifying burst of blood energy erupted, sending dozens of bodies flying. Thus, the Darkspawn could only comply reluctantly. All right, that's enough. But first, deal with the thing above us. Use my power. Ultimate sword skill Abyssal Blood Sea." Alice aimed her ominous blade at the oppressive giant sword above, activating 4 red magic circles. An illusion of a blood sea appeared. It devoured the giant sword entirely. The cardinal was shocked. "Impossible. 4 magic circles. Quick, attack her together and kill her." Furfus retrieved his sword, leading a charge with several temple guards. Ellipsis. TL. Yeah guys, just ignore the royal and imperial discrepancies that pop up sometimes. Sometimes characters that suggest an empire show up but don't even when they should. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 107. The Arrival of the World-Class Magical Paradise. TL. Sungman. Alicia looked at them with a cold expression, her eyes filled with evil and murderous intent. She stood calmly in place. Facing Furfus and his group's fierce offensive, she instantly obliterated the foremost temple guard with just a single move. The heavy sword was cleaved into 2, and the heavy armor could not withstand the current sword force. As blood spurted from the headless corpse, it was all absorbed by Alicia's left hand. "Don't act rashly. If we get caught alone, we'll be killed in an instant. Use magic to wear her down." The cardinal felt unprecedented pressure. Furfus and the others began casting their spells. Several beams of intense holy light shot straight at Alicia. However, Alicia evaded each attack with the grace of a waltz. Those holy beams struck and shattered numerous goblins. But none of them felt any joy. The cardinal thought, Perhaps the Pope needed to intervene. They had to eliminate this dark entity at all costs. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. Evil and ruthless humans, you want me dead. Suddenly, in the mere 0.5 seconds the cardinal was lost in thought, Alicia flashed to his front. Her mouth emitted the deep, raspy voice of a dark being. The cardinal hurriedly swung his sword but struck only air. Turning his head, he saw that another temple guard had been slain. Basking in blood, an aura of sinister beauty emanated from Alicia, elegantly claiming the life and blood of everyone. The cardinal now found it impossible to cast high-level spells and had to engage in swordplay. He also ordered Furfus and the others to regroup. Even two fists can't fight four hands. Let's attack together. As long as one strike lands, the holy power will suppress her. The cardinal commanded. The four of them started to fight side by side, swinging their swords wildly. However, Alicia stood with her sword in one hand, easily parrying their four-blade strikes with a single hand. She didn't retreat a single step. She even seemed at ease. This scene made the cardinal begin to tremble with fear, his pupils shaking. What kind of swordsmanship is this? Only Reinhardt from the Kingdom of Swords can achieve this level, right? The Kingdom of Swords was the enemy nation of the Lionheart Empire, with frequent border conflicts. Their king, Reinhardt, was hailed as the sword saint of this era. Alicia had been known as the sword saintess, meaning the saintess who used a sword, not a sword saint. But Reinhardt was a true top-tier swordsman. Reinhardt, does he deserve to be compared to me? The dark being's voice was full of disdain and even anger. Compared to swordsmanship, the dark being was born on the battlefield and grew up in slaughter. He had ruled over human fears of the battlefield for centuries. How could a mere person who might have only lived for a few decades dare compare with him in swordsmanship? It was simply an insult. The cardinal said nothing more and continued his fierce assault. But in the next second, a cracking sound came from the holy cross sword in his hand. A crack appeared on the blade. Snap! Alicia seized this moment and struck forcefully, shattering the holy cross sword completely, representing her resolve. Cardinal Furfus and the others were in disbelief, swinging their swords to rescue him. But after swinging their heavy swords for so long, they were exhausted. It was too late. Slash! An arm flew out, accompanied by blood. The hand still held half of the holy cross sword. Furfus and the others, now rushing forward, were seeking their own deaths. Your movements are too slow, and your blood reeks of stench. Alicia easily dodged, thrusting her sword into his heart with one strike. Furfus's pupils were filled with disbelief, the golden light in them dimming. He staggered back a few steps before collapsing to the ground. Furfus! The fallen cardinal cried out in pain. He gritted his teeth and immediately got up to escape. Alicia gave him no chance, flashing over to kill him. The remaining two temple guards launched an attack, forcibly holding her back. But they were only courting death. Cardinal, quickly notify His Holiness the Pope. Blood gushed from the necks of the two temple guards as they struggled to speak. The three shared a mutual understanding. The cardinal's thoughts were the same. They had to call on the Pope, or the situation would be uncontrollable. Seeing him disappear into the crowd, Alicia prepared to give chase. But the dark being stopped her, saying, "Wait, we can't handle that guy behind him." Alicia, don't chase. At this moment, Lin Tian also came over to dissuade her. They had just dealt with those 5 temple guards. Only Gobu Kuang and Gobu Shan were slightly injured. Lin Tian expressed his concern, "Can you keep suppressing that guy? Your body is already overtaxed and needs healing." Although the swordsmanship just now belonged to the dark being, she was the one who wielded it. Such rapid sword swings and power must have placed a tremendous burden on her body. Don't worry, there are still so many enemies left. What will we do if we encounter danger later? Don't you think? The dark being said in a sinister tone. Alicia also understood the situation, trying to control the ominous blade to completely suppress the dark being's body. But it had no effect. The dark being continued innocently, "Once the war ends, I will naturally disappear. Didn't your texts mention that? We appear with war and vanish when it ends. So, I won't be a threat." Alicia pondered for a moment. He seems to make sense. The Pope hasn't made a move yet. His power. The Pope isn't on the same level as us. Ifreya, use purification. Lin Tian nudged the dazed Ifreya beside him. Immediately, he cast an ultimate spell, Purification Light. It enveloped the entire Alicia. Stop. This feels like falling into a pit of filth. Don't you guys have any morals? I saved you, helped you. The dark being's voice was filled with anger and curses. But Lin Tian showed no intention of stopping. He just wanted to repress this guy. Helpless, the dark being temporarily retreated back into the ominous blade. He believed there would be another opportunity later. Returning to normal, Alicia staggered and almost fell. Her hands were bloodied and her body too exhausted to stand. Lin Tian, now in his big variant form, gently supported her. Hurry, heal her wounds. Ifreya quickly complied. In the distance, Charles II watched this scene, unsure of what to say. Alicia. He then looked at the battling armies. His heart felt very empty. Having never married and having no children, he had long considered Alicia his daughter. Seeing Alicia stabilized, he felt relieved. However, he sensed that the scale of this war had begun to tilt. They might very well lose the battle. Buzz. Suddenly, in an instant, everything seemed to stop. Time itself appeared to freeze. Soldiers in mid-swing with their swords also paused. In the air, the splattered blood hung suspended. The entire world turned gray. World-class magic kingdom come. A beam of golden light shot into the sky, shattering the frozen world. Everyone recovered. But they were all stunned by the golden shield above their heads. It was so large it enveloped the entire battlefield, even covering the entire Liang plain. It was like being in a new world. All they could see was the radiance from the shield. Boss, what is this? It feels so uncomfortable, Gobu Kwang couldn't help but say. Even Lin Tian felt uneasy, very oppressed. The cardinal reappeared, his injuries healed, his severed hand reattached. With a look of cold triumph, he said, surrender. The Pope has initiated Kingdom Come. You have no chance of winning. Kingdom Come could weaken all monsters within its range by 1 tier while boosting all holy beings by 1 tier. Lin Tian frowned deeply, not expecting that old man to make a move. Why hadn't Veronica and the others acted yet? Suddenly, a piercing, tragic scream sounded nearby. A black goat spawn fell heavily, killed by a swarm of monks and cross guards. The goblins on the front battlefield were also being wiped out. Imperial soldiers, along with monks and nuns, began a counterattack. Leader variants turned into hero variants into big variants, and big variants into low-level goblins. Low-level goblin attributes were suppressed. How could they fight like this? Previously, Imperial soldiers feared the leader variants, but now they chased them down. Ifreya, you are still alive. The cardinal stared at the person beside Lin Tian, recognizing her and exclaiming in shock. She was once the most outstanding nun, chosen as a divine priestess, with great talent, potentially succeeding the Holy Mother. Now she squatted like a dog before a goblin. Mixing with monsters. No, the cardinal suddenly realized something was wrong. Ifreya, full of fear, pleaded, save me, I was enslaved by the goblins, cardinal. Lin Tian provocatively looked at the cardinal and publicly humiliated Ifreya a few times. Ifreya blushed, seemingly enjoying it. But to cooperate with Lin Tian, she made a show of resisting. The cardinal was instantly enraged. Damn you. Stop it. I command you to stop. A divine priestess being publicly toyed with by a goblin. What did this mean? Blasphemy. Sacrilege. Even though Ifreya was no longer a divine priestess, she had still been chosen. She was still a member of the church. Lin Tian sneered, look at her, lying through her teeth. She looks so comfortable. If I stop, will she curse me? Ultimate magic hand of judgment. Suddenly, 2 magic circles appeared before the cardinal, summoning a giant golden hand that snatched Ifreya back. Several nuns hurried forward to check her condition. Seeing Ifreya unharmed, they were relieved. Lin Tian licked his lips, so many cute, beautiful nuns. Today isn't a loss. Be gentle, capture them alive. I'll figure out a way to deal with that old man. Then, Lin Tian transformed into an imperial soldier. He headed towards the rear of the army. Where the old pope was. Over 3.5k words today. Damn. Liked it. Extra chapters at premium via Patreon. Chapter 108. The Pope's Terror. Lin Tian's serious injury. TL. Sungman. The cardinal finally smiled in relief. It's okay, Ifreya. His Holiness the Pope has taken action. We won't lose. Then, a fierce light appeared in his eyes. He glanced at Gobu Kwang and his group. To die in the heavenly kingdom is your honor. He raised his hand, ready to cast magic again. With the boost from Kingdom Come, dealing with them was now a piece of cake. He could even kill Gobu Kwang in an instant. Alice also felt troubled. World-class magic shield of Avalon. Suddenly, Ifreya's magic book flipped rapidly in her hands. 4 magic arrays converged, emitting a blinding light toward the cardinal. They encased him directly in a hexagonal crystal shield. The cardinal was full of astonishment. Ifreya, what are you doing? Let me out. It's done. Ifreya's eyes were vacant, like a robot that had completed its task, and she swaggered back to Alice. She had never been able to use world-class magic because her level was not high enough, under level 100. But she was in the divine category. With the boost from Kingdom Come, she was granted the qualification to use it. Although its power was far from what a true level 100 could wield, it was still not something the Cardinal could break through. Avalon was once an empire on this continent. Its most famous achievement was the creation of shields. Their shield-bearing troops had once achieved a legendary victory of 0 casualties in the annihilation of a small nation. The king comprehended and created this magic. Later, it was learned by the Klin family, allowing Ifreya to master it. The cardinal, unwilling to give up, punched the shield. After this punch, he immediately gave up resistance. He felt as if he had struck a towering mountain, utterly unshakable. Just controlling him was enough. So Lin Tian left without worry. He disguised himself as an imperial soldier and ran to the enemy's rear, soon seeing a hastily built altar. On top of it stood a figure radiating golden light, hands raised to the sky. The holy light soaring into the sky emanated from him. The Pope, Douglas. His cross-holy robes fluttered without wind, and his eyes shone with a bright golden light. He looked like a god descending to the mortal realm. Majestic and divine. Douglas. LV 100. Race. Human. Profession. Holy Pope. Titles. Supreme of Faith. Below the Gods. Light of the World. Health. 3,800. Strength. 1,300. Defense. 1,900. Skills. Kingdom Come. Collapse of all realms. Ultimate Judgment. Light Blessing. Ascension. Equipment. Cross Holy Robes. Endless Holy Grail. Overall. 10,000. What the hell? What's with these guys' combat power? Just a bit more than Veronica, is it? To the point where it scared her into inaction. Lin Tian felt both puzzled and irritated. He had intended to leave the rest to Veronica. But she hadn't made a move after such a long wait, so he had to try it himself. He also wanted to gauge the Pope's strength. Then he thought to himself, HMPH, once this is over, see how I deal with you. Veronica, I'll use your bones to make soup. And that seductive succubus too. Letting him and his kin die irresponsibly like this. How could he not resent Veronica? Your Holiness, I have something to report. Lin Tian rushed up, kneeling before him and speaking anxiously. Feeling the holy light emanating from him, he almost couldn't breathe, his whole body in discomfort. The Pope looked slightly surprised, his golden eyes fixed on Lin Tian, neither speaking nor looking away. It was quite unnerving. At this moment, a graceful nun approached gently. Don't be anxious, stand up and speak slowly. Lin Tian's eyes brightened at the sight of her. What was with this nun? The pristine holy robes gave him an urge to defile them. Good grief, good things were hidden here. But first, he needed to get down to business. With the life armor protecting him, theoretically, the Pope couldn't kill him with a single blow. He just needed to wound the Pope with the spear of Zeus stained with the blood of ruin. The possibility of this was quite high. So Lin Tian decided to take this risk. He then seriously explained the frontline situation, preparing to take out the spear of Zeus from his space ring. Move aside. The old Pope lowered one hand, bursting forth a strong holy light. Like a cannonball, it blasted Lin Tian away at supersonic speed. The sound of the sonic boom could still be heard. The terrifying, unbelievable force sent Lin Tian flying away. He was thrown directly to the edge of Kingdom Come, 30 kilometers away, crashing heavily against the shield before falling to the ground. My back. Cough, cough. On the ground, Lin Tian twisted like a worm, coughing up large amounts of blood. He felt like he was about to die. Everything hurt. It wasn't just his hand that was broken, it felt like all his bones were shattered. The life armor on his chest had formed a thick, round shape, absorbing most of the damage. It had become shriveled and deflated, as if it were about to die. But even so, Lin Tian's chest bones were all broken. He had severe internal injuries. His internal organs and brain seemed to be bleeding. Damn, how is it this terrifying? I think I understand that Veronica now, Lin Tian muttered. Just one casual attack had nearly killed him. No wonder only this Pope survived for so long. He had scared the entire crypt into submission. Suddenly, the golden light before him began to dim. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, lightning flashed, and thunder roared, forming a massive vortex. Several black, giant magic arrays also appeared. It seemed something was about to emerge. The terrifying pressure made it hard for everyone to breathe. Then, a large, black, furry, wrinkled hand stretched out from the vortex. It blocked out the sky. The nails were pitch black, making it hard to tell if it was a humanoid creature or something else. It slammed heavily onto Kingdom Come. Crack. The deafening roar echoed as Kingdom Come was directly shattered. The church members had not anticipated such an event. The suppressed monsters regained their strength and began to counterattack. Lin Tian, still shaken, thought, what kind of high-level combat is this? I don't seem to have any qualification to compare. Thank you, little guy. We will now enter and lead your goblins to victory. Behind him, a familiar, sinister voice spoke. It was Veronica, along with Rebecca. And behind them, a horde of fierce, terrifying monsters bared their fangs. Cerberus, Cyclops, Minotaurs, various monstrous beastmen, black witches, and many more. All incredibly powerful. Because of Lin Tian's attack, though unsuccessful, it had distracted the old pope, weakening Kingdom Come. Veronica seized the opportunity to use her heretical summoning, calling forth the Hand of Calamity. Breaking it. Then, they prepared to enter and reap the rewards of victory. Lin Tian watched them leave, squinting with a cold expression. He thought, what a clever plan. They seem to be guarding against me deeply, not even giving me treatment. Are they that afraid I'll turn against them? Since that was the case, they couldn't blame him for biting back hard. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 109. The Power of the 12-Winged Seraph. TL. Sungman. Rebecca, brushing past Lin Tian, only gave him a fleeting glance. Her gaze was filled with disdain and contempt. For them, Lin Tian was now just a pawn they could discard. They didn't care about his life or death at all. Hey, Demon Lord, I feel like I'm going to die. Can you heal me? Lin Tian shouted from afar. Unfortunately, Veronica merely brushed him off, saying, we need to enter quickly and press the attack. Stay still. Someone will come to save you later. Alright. So, this was how they wanted to play. Murderous intent surged in Lin Tian's eyes as he took out a world-class healing magical device. He healed himself sufficiently. Now it was time to bring out the goblin army from the snowy plains. They wanted to reap the battlefield. He would reap them instead. At that moment, the Pope, with Kingdom Come interrupted, suffered a significant backlash and was being supported by the Holy Mother, gasping for breath. From the first glance, I knew that guy wasn't human. I didn't expect Veronica to exploit this. The Pope's voice was hoarse, his aged appearance suggesting he might collapse at any moment. The Holy Mother hurriedly cast healing magic, but it was to no avail. At over 100 years old, every spell he cast consumed his life force, which couldn't be replenished. Moreover, healing magic essentially exhausted life force. Cells could only divide a limited number of times. Once they stopped dividing and waste cells accumulated, a person would die. Thus, many people tried to avoid getting injured. Even with world-class healing magic, healing shortened one's life. The old Pope sighed, don't waste your magic. I never planned to go back alive. They're coming. In the distance, the terrifying dark power of the enchanted forest spread towards the battlefield. With every step Veronica and her group took, the surrounding sky lost its light, becoming extremely dim. It's been a long time, Douglas. I've missed you over these decades, Veronica said mockingly. Rebecca still wore her arrogant expression, not taking anyone seriously. The creatures behind them grew increasingly restless. All the Imperial soldiers, ordered by the Cardinal, retreated behind the Pope and his group. With the destruction of Kingdom Come, Freya's power waned significantly. World-class magic could no longer be maintained. Earlier, Lin Tian had instructed Gobu Kwang and the others to retreat with the goblins if Veronica and her group arrived. The old Pope, with a heavy and hateful expression, said, decades have passed, and you haven't changed at all, Veronica. That only means your eyes are failing. My power is no longer the same as it was. Veronica's eyes flashed with a crimson light. Over the decades, several 12th-tier creatures of her caliber had emerged. Sadly, many were killed by numerous popes. Only she survived. The Pope sighed again. What do you want? Why must you increase the slaughter? You increased the slaughter. I only wanted a piece of my former life, but you obstructed me time and again. Today, I'll take it all back. Veronica's tone was icy, filled with resolve. No one starts out wanting to rule the world or a kingdom. She just wanted to experience life again, not dwell in the darkness with hideous creatures. But the Church's doctrine of eradicating all monsters led to this outcome. Unlike Buddhism, which preached conversion and negotiation. Though Buddhists sometimes used demons as mounts, they didn't provoke large-scale conflicts. Taoism emphasized balance between good and evil, yin and yang, with its own criteria for judging evil. If you weren't evil, you could coexist. After all, no one chose their appearance at birth. Ultimately, it was the lofty authority of the gods that caused this. The old pope tried to reason, life. But you are already dead. Staying in the great tomb is your life. Unreasonable. Attack. Veronica, infuriated by his words, declared outright. Suddenly, a terrifying oppressive force against monsters surged. The old pope radiated a dazzling light and said faintly, "World-class magic. Holy Lake of Eden." In the next second, the entire Liang plain turned into a vast lake. Filled with pure holy water, the shimmering lake was lethal to monsters. Contact with it would burn and corrode their bodies. All the monsters began to sink into the holy lake, the pain unbearable when touched by the holy water. Let alone falling in. Gobu Kwang, filled with curiosity, found the forming lake beneath his feet clear and pure. It looked very drinkable. He reached out, ready to scoop some up and taste it. Alice shouted coldly, "Stop. I advise you not to touch it." Goblin Slayer snapped, "You really are ignorant. If you drink that, your guts will rot." Damn. These words shocked Gobu Kwang into silence. Heretic summoning. Hell's lava. Veronica immediately retaliated. Several giant magic arrays formed under their feet, spreading across the entire Liang plain, encompassing the holy lake's range. Next, a vast amount of scorching lava appeared. When the lava met the holy water, it erupted in massive clouds of white smoke. The reaction between the water and lava turned into a large amount of obsidian. The monsters stood on the obsidian, unaffected by the holy water. Gobu Kwang's trembling heart finally calmed down. The old pope's expression changed slightly, clearly not expecting this outcome. Things were more troublesome than anticipated. Scared? Why not become my subordinate, like your son? At least you won't die of old age. How about it? Veronica taunted, pointing to the corpse pope beside her. Covered in corpse spots, he stood there lifelessly. He was once Douglas's son. Otherwise, the entire church wouldn't lack someone with power comparable to the pope. The corpse pope was already dead. He moved only because a heretic creature controlled him. Thus, his power was very low, only 6,000. But if the control was lifted and he fully zombified, he could reach nearly 9,000. In that state, the corpse pope could use his original magic. However, he couldn't think and would fall into indiscriminate slaughter. Veronica cast another spell, Heretic Summoning, Dark Realm. This spell targeted only her and the old pope, pulling them into an alternate world, ensuring he couldn't self-destruct and kill the other monsters. It's our turn now. Let's wipe them all out. Rebecca said coldly, transforming into a black and white meteor, weaving through the monks. Blood splattered. Her tail sting pierced the necks of over a dozen monks. The cardinal quickly cast a spell to trap her. Damn succubus, enough. He gathered super tier magic, forming 3 magic arrays, crucifixion. Tilda, can you really bear to hurt me? Rebecca laughed lightly, her charm overwhelming. Using her bewitching power, she made even the cardinal momentarily distracted. Let alone the other monks and imperial soldiers, who couldn't move their legs, their minds consumed by lust, almost losing control on the spot. This was a powerful and qualified succubus. She didn't need to fight herself. Just one look could incapacitate others. In just 2 seconds of distraction, the Golden Cross attack missed, killing only a few hundred big goblins. Damn succubus. I'll never stop until you're dead. The cardinal gritted his teeth, his face red with anger. His manly pride was shattered, making him feel pathetic. He had lasted only 2 seconds. Rebecca laughed mockingly. Haha. I made you feel good, yet you want to kill me. The church is full of murderous lunatics. This time, I won't lose. Super tier magic. Holy field. Super tier magic. Crucifixion. Boom. Unable to dodge, this strike left Rebecca in a bad state, her black feathers scattering in the air. Blood trickled from her lips. She was surprised. You seem stronger. That's thanks to you, putting me into sage mode. The cardinal shamelessly said, never expecting to be so effective now. He could now repeatedly cast crucifixion. He launched another attack. Suddenly, a cold light flashed, and Alice blocked the strike, standing in front of Rebecca. He's mine to kill. No need for you to intervene. Oh, Rebecca looked at her curiously. She had been wary before but now felt a bit of admiration. Thus, they began a combined attack on the cardinal. Even in sage mode, he was overwhelmed and couldn't fight back. Damn. Holy Mother. I need to use that. We must eliminate this monster and Alice. Cardinal, hold on. The Pope isn't out yet. Hang in there. The Holy Mother shouted from the rear, healing the severely injured monks and holy knights. Many had their lifespans drastically shortened. But they all understood. The Pope was no longer a match for Veronica. The Cardinal gritted his teeth. Hurry. If I die now, I won't even get a chance to fight. Ultimate magic. Fiery redemption. A beam of holy light shot from the rear, striking the Cardinal. It also forced Alice and Rebecca back. They watched him warily, unsure what was happening. Rebecca grew cautious, as this, angelic power. No, impossible. It's the power of an angel, and not just any angel, but the power of a 12-winged seraph. The user will be burned to ashes within 10 minutes, but during that time, they gain immense power. That is redemption, Alice said heavily, feeling the situation was dire. Even the Darkspawn were wary. We should retreat. It's only 10 minutes, right? But escaping wasn't an option. In an instant, the Cardinal, engulfed in holy fire, stood before them. Under the holy fire's burning, Rebecca felt a fate worse than death. She could barely breathe. She was completely powerless to fight back. The sensation of death filled her mind. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon. Chapter 110. Eden will avenge you. TL. Sungman. I will transform into holy wrath and burn all the monsters to ashes. The Cardinal's eyes were filled with pain, his entire body ablaze with holy fire. Enduring the excruciating pain, he delivered a powerful punch. He sent Rebecca flying dozens of meters away, her body ignited by the holy fire. Her clothes were burnt and tattered. The goblins and Imperial soldiers who had been fighting just a second ago stopped in their tracks, collapsing to the ground in ecstasy. The effect of this was too widespread. Large groups of soldiers and monsters were entranced, losing themselves completely. The Cardinal initially intended to eliminate him first, but seeing the effect, he thought it could relieve some pressure on the battlefield. It might prevent the soldiers from being massacred by the monsters. Thus, he set his sights on Alice instead. The holy fire did not affect Alice, but it significantly suppressed the power of the ominous blade. Now, it was as if she held an ordinary piece of iron, perhaps even less. Her attacks were ineffective against the Cardinal. I'm sorry, I couldn't save you. The Cardinal, in anguish, sent Alice flying into the air with a few punches. He then activated a magic circle, super tier magic heavenly fire judgment. This strike was enough to kill her, or at the very least, severely injure her. Alice, weightless in the high air, had no means of dodging. In the distance, Rebecca realized, damn, are the church people so heartless? Even killing humans. She couldn't bear to see Alice die. She admired Alice the most, for both her strength and beauty, and their recent fight side by side. She had even fallen in love with her. One must understand, her relationship with Veronica was not just superior and subordinate. There was also a romantic aspect. The Cardinal, however, did not hesitate at all. He didn't have much time left and wanted to take down as many powerful enemies as possible before his death. Roar. Suddenly, a lion's roar echoed. Charles II, with tears in his eyes, shouted, Alice. He knew well that the Lionheart Empire's days were numbered, and resistance was futile. It was better to protect the one who always protected them before dying. He leapt into the air, using his flesh and blood to block the heavenly fire judgment. The terrifying fireball instantly blew Charles II into pieces. He still had many things to say to Alice, but there was no chance now. The Imperial soldiers, seeing this, were horrified, unable to accept it. Your Majesty. The Cardinal's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't anticipated this outcome. Behind the burning debris, Alice's eyes were filled with hatred and remorse. She hated those who wanted her dead, but she didn't hate Charles II. She even saw him as a father figure. And now, he died tragically before her eyes. Why did it turn out like this? How many more mistakes do I have to make? The Cardinal knelt on the ground in agony, shouting in despair. Looking at his hands, he was filled with regret. Suddenly, he felt a chill down his back, sensing a strong threat approaching. Alice transformed once more into the Dark Ruler, with dragon wings sprouting from her back. She exuded an aura of supreme dominance. This time, she completely controlled the powers of the Dark Ruler and the dragon. Tisk tisk tisk, things are getting interesting, the Dark Ruler remarked. The Cardinal, though filled with regret, knew he couldn't die yet. He had to do something more. He threw out 2 more heavenly fire judgments. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. But they were dispersed by a powerful sword chi, accompanied by a dragon's roar. As the flames scattered, a sword appeared at the cardinal's neck. Unable to react in time, his throat was slit, blood spurting out. Damn, is my time up? I couldn't dodge in time. The cardinal muttered in surprise, not caring about his wound. He was about to die anyway. He raised his hand to cast another super tier spell. Slash. A blade flashed. Both his arms fell to the ground with a thud. The cardinal gritted his teeth in pain. How could this be? You. Before he could finish, a dagger pierced through his cheeks, silencing him. Then, his legs were cut off. He looked like a horrifying, inhuman creature. Alice, resembling a demon, stood before the cardinal, blood dripping from her sword. She lowered her head, her face darkened with lines of black. She neither spoke nor attacked. She just watched him die in agony, moment by moment. Our emperor is dead, killed by the church. Why? Lionheart in its twilight years. Farewell, your majesty. I will join you soon. The news spread quickly among the imperial soldiers, their faces filled with grief and anger. In no time, they turned their fury towards the clergy, even if it meant killing them by mistake. They could not accept this. Charles II might not have been a powerful king, but he was certainly a worthy one. Great and selfless. How could they not hate the ones who killed him? At this moment, the monsters began a full-on assault. They forced the empire and church forces to retreat continuously until there was nowhere left to go. The cardinal's mouth moved, blood constantly pouring out, but he insisted on speaking. Alice, I didn't mean to. Forgive me. Forgive me. Despite the dagger tearing his mouth apart, he begged earnestly. However, he could only die with regret. Slash. A flash of the blade. Head and body separated. Alice stood before the corpse, seemingly mourning Charles II. Her heart was now dead. Not intentional. Chasing her for so long, if it wasn't intentional, what was it? Thus, her hatred for the church, the kingdom, and the imperial citizens reached its peak. Now, even Charles II had died because of those people. This only strengthened her resolve. Are you Alice? Don't worry, we will always be with you. Rebecca slowly walked over at this moment. Her voluptuous body pressed closely against Alice. Trying to comfort her, this was the first step in forming a connection. As a succubus, she was actually a lesbian who had never done the typical succubus activities. In a sense, she was a disgrace to succubi. But Alice did not buy it, and instead, she coldly said, Gobu Kwang, take the remaining hero variants and follow me. It's time to occupy the capital. She could not wait to trouble the capital's residents. To make them pay for their sins. Cerberus, you go along too. This battlefield is no longer a battlefield. Rebecca instructed. She sent a group of monsters to follow Alice to the capital. Only then could it be proven that the Great Tomb had defeated the Lionheart Empire and the Church. What remained were the Imperial soldiers running in panic. Their main forces were all dead, even the king. The Church was also covering the retreat of the Holy Mother. This battle was unbearably tragic. Mainly with heavy casualties on the Empire and Church sides. At this moment, Veronica and the old Pope were still fighting in the Dark Realm. A burst of intense holy light exploded above the clouds. It forced all the monsters chasing the Imperial soldiers to retreat. The old Pope returned to this world amidst the light, now radiating power beyond human capabilities. His eyes shone with golden light, holding a greatsword formed of light. Veronica smirked, already pushed to this point after such a short time. The old Pope had used his last trump card, a world-class spell, Heavenly Descent. He established a link with the 12-winged seraph Gabriel, merging a trace of her consciousness and power within him, essentially inviting a deity. But it consumed all of the old Pope's remaining strength. However, it was enough to kill Veronica. Monster, are you ready to face judgment? Under my divine might, no heretic dares appear, you can't summon anything. A mature, authoritative female voice came from the old Pope's mouth. Like thunder from the ninth heaven. The other monsters trembled in fear, curling up on the ground. They felt that standing up would be disrespectful and could lead to death at any moment. Veronica felt immense pressure but remained confident. Douglas, is this your final trump card? Well, let me match it. Saying this, she also began a heretical summoning. It's useless. Gabriel sneered, raising the sword of judgment to strike. Suddenly, her expression changed, she withdrew her sword and retreated. Cautiously, she said, Traitor of Eden, what does this have to do with you? Are you also getting involved? Kahahe tilde I wasn't interested, but they said it involved you, so why not come? From Veronica's body, the same aura as Gabriel's burst forth. Her voice changed, sounding like a mad woman. It was the fallen angel Lucifer. Also a 12-winged seraph. Unlike the old Pope's invocation of Gabriel, Veronica had anticipated this. It didn't require much effort. Lucifer willingly descended, because she hated angels and Eden. These two auras pressured both monsters and humans to the ground. Trembling, they dared not move. Gabriel was furious. You traitor, why do you always oppose us? Because you framed me. I swore I would return to Eden and make you all beg at my feet. Lucifer said angrily. At this moment, Gabriel was silent. She knew she was not a match for Lucifer, and the old Pope's body couldn't endure much more. Instead, she looked at the crowd. People, Eden will never forget your suffering today. The great tomb, goblins, we will deal with you. With that, the holy light from the heavens seemed severed. The old Pope also recovered, stumbling and nearly falling. He had killed several heretics in the Dark Realm, heavily injured, and establishing a link with Eden had exhausted his strength. The Holy Mother rushed to support him. Quick, go to the Sword Kingdom, the holy light there never extinguishes. There's also the Clover Kingdom and the Shamrock Kingdom, their churches can shelter you. The old Pope spoke with difficulty, each word seeming to take his last breath. Finally, he closed his eyes, revealing ordinary brown pupils. In the end, he was once just an ordinary person, merely burdened with responsibility. Ellipsis. Shamrocks are 3-leafed clovers. Liked it. Extra chapters at Premium via Patreon.